Clarified mind.
Okay, we ready?
Hello, welcome to the Big Black Tent.
Mm-mm-mm.
I am Rebecca, aka Naima Freedom,
I am Natalie Arsenault, her trusty sidekick.
and we have a whole lot to talk about in this Big Black Tent. I love the topics that you sent for us to discuss. Number one, um, because I would later like to talk about the tape that I saw on the special needs student stomping somebody out. Um, and not to laugh, but not for the reasons you may think. Because I can relate on so many levels in the services that are lacking.
I knew understand it. I was like, Rebecca's gonna understand. Okay, but before we get to that,
Before we get to that.
before we started recording,
Mm-hmm.
you said you had something that you wanted to make. You wanted to have a conversation on the show, and appreciate it because you were like, I'm scared, and so that's why I need to do it. So I'm like, oh, let me hit record. Let's record. Okay, because you know. Breakthroughs or breakdowns, one of the two come from.
It's going to be one of the breakthrough or breakdown. Okay, so I was confessing that I have been seeing Kim Pence, energy healer, for the past 3 years.
Kim is great.
Mm-hmm.
Kim is great.
You said Kim is great?
Great. She's my energy healer. Love her. She's great.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Kim is magnificent. And anything that I've had to project onto her was just projected. She can take it. So, so go Kim. She's really strong. When I've talked about this in varying degrees and in different ways, but I have been defragmenting myself. And for years, you have been helping me, mentoring me in different business aspects and ideas. And pretty genius, might I add, as I go through the slew of products and things I stopped and started, but not could not really get to the root of what was stopping me, right? Why was I starting and stopping? What's going on? So like a lot of things I've had to walk through since 2017, which I think is the first time I reemerged with you. And a lot of bumps in between. So one thing that I've learned in all of this, right? All the great texts, sacred texts, tell us that the core of our issue is us. So I've been down to get to the core of my issue. And when I first met Kim, this has been the story. And then I'll tell you what's kind of fallen into place. When I first met Kim, I was highly offended at what she had to say to me.
I feel like how your relationships all start because I believe when we reconnected after high school, it was on Facebook, and it's because I said something that you were highly offended at, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you because that's just what it is. And then you said you were, so okay, this is good. This is positive because it means offense breeds a stir
Yeah.
of things.
Oh, that's good. You called me out, but that is so true. That is a pattern, is that if there's something that highly offends me, which is a trigger, it's something I need to work with, work on, heal from.
Okay.
So yes, unfortunately, that's how my
Fortunate. I mean, you
uh,
have identified the thing, so at least there are people walking around offended with things or something else, mad, angry, whatever the thing is, and are unwilling to like figure out why that's the thing. So you figured out the thing, so
that's true. That's
remarkable.
true. So figuring out the thing. So what she said to me when she first met me, that it's taken me 3 full years to deconstruct is, uh, like 3 years, really? Yesterday?
No pickle and move on. Okay, keep going.
3 years to reconstruct. And she said, when I got on the screen, because it was, a Zoom screen, and all the defenses, like, you don't know me, like that's the first thing that usually comes up. I mean, I got layers, people. But um, she says to me, "Oh, you're a medium." like
Oh,
that.
okay.
And when she said that, that offended me greatly because number one, you don't know me.
Um,
Number two,
he'll be knowing stuff.
I know, I
And
know,
then
I know, I know,
he'll be knowing stuff. Okay.
I know. Like I'm deep Kevin a little, but my psychology was right. Life, life was completely in shambles, right? Completely, completely in going through a serious breakthrough. So everything was midnight black. And when she said that, what that triggered deeply in me was um a lot of trauma and the way that I was raised in the church, you might as well call me a devil worshiper,
That's fair.
right? So that's what I associated that with,
Okay.
right? Why you try to connect me to Satan? Like that's where my mind went. So, but I listened because, right, I think every part of me, my soul understood what she was trying to do, even if my offenses were alerted, right? I could tell whatever it was, she could see me, right? The hope was she could see something made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I couldn't put it together, right, with the trauma that I was trying to unveil. So as I continue that with her saying that, I had I had things going on with Gracie that were undeniable. So things that I dismissed about myself, and then the evidence of my existence was reverberating in this new child that I had, right? So there was a lot to reconcile with how I showed up in the world and the core of me and the soul of me. So that has literally been the work of me for the past 3 years. And of course, you have to survive whatever in the process. So I had been a person who grew up in a house with parents who were seers, but they were very trauma laden. And we kind of talked about, Black folks in America, of what that might look like for them. And so all I knew is seeing that way meant crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Crazy. And I don't want to be like them, they crazy, they can't control,
Right.
issues of self-regulation, depression, anxiety, all of that.
Right.
So as I started doing these projects, there was something about me that had taught myself to survive absence of that spiritual part of me. And so I had really created this, subconsciously created this persona that could get along in the world, that could maneuver in the world. And it's probably so common.
Yes.
I think most of us do it in a certain way.
Well,
So what started happening is I went on a trip with Kim and I started to accept this part of myself and not understand totally this part of myself. I started having experiences at work. I started having coworkers at work validate stuff for me, like outside of me, to give me that validation. And so I decided to go to my mom, right? My sister, my God bless my sister, who really, really thinks that I'm in some type of witchcraft. It was like praying for you, deliver yourself. So I was intimidated about I had some questions for my mom, right? I had some questions about these things I experienced. And I'm gonna tell you what I was experiencing. This is the part that makes me very fearful, honestly. So you know how if you're little, or you might think about somebody and the phone rings, right? Or you think about something, the person's like, oh, I was just thinking that too. So that stuff started to happen, but times 10 million to me. And it was very uncomfortable. And I started to realize it was uncontrollable to a point because I wasn't aware of it. And so there was this, gentleman at my job who, when I was in meditation, I would just see him and I would hear something to tell him, right? And I was like, it was one of those thoughts that entered your mind that just wasn't your thought,
yeah.
right? It just wasn't yours. So it wasn't the norm. And I wrote it down. I wrote it down anyway. And I learned to ask in threes, like if this is something that I really need to know, um, could you show this to me in 3 different ways? Like, that's the confirmation I needed.
Okay.
So I ended up talking to this young man. I said, hey, I have a message. I have a message for you. And I had this, I did this about 3 times with this young man. And the first time he said, okay, just, give me the note. Or it's not, I was like, it's not exactly a note. It's something I'm trying to prep it so I don't seem crazy. It's something that I thought, right? And he was like, oh, who you talking to about it? I was like, well, in prayer. And he was like, oh, a message from the Lord. Come on right over. So that shocked me, right? Like, okay. So I sit down and I tell him, and he said, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense to me. So that gave me a little bit more confidence, right? That I wasn't losing my mind. Um, the second incident that I really had that made me talk to my mom and ask some questions is when I was walking by the office and the front office, and I looked at the receptionist and she said, Rebecca such and such and such. And so I just let her go by the way. And I double back and I say, hey, can you finish your sentence? I didn't quite hear it. And she says nothing to me. She's just staring at me. So I go to the copy room and she comes to the copy room and she says, I didn't say that out loud. And I said, you didn't say what out loud? And she said, your name or the sentence I was speaking. And this is not a person I have an intimate relationship with, right? So I didn't know what to do with that, right? I didn't know what to do with that. So I thought I would talk to my mom because I have a memory from childhood that I interpreted as maybe it wasn't right, but I need to talk to my mom about this.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talked to my mom and I told her what happened at work, and I didn't talk to my mom about spiritual things in eons because from my child memory, she was kind of crazy. Like, that's the only language I had. And she would talk about stuff called being on someone's wavelength or that was the 70s thing kind of, and I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So that's my Gracie. We're not gonna edit this. It's just like, yes, Gracie, what you need, mama? Okay, well, you got to get a book because I'm in the meeting. How about my phone? You can have this phone because that's what we're gonna do during this meeting. Technology. All right, babysitter. Close the door, babe. Okay. So I talked to my mom and I said, mom, the only memory I have regarding anything like this is when you took me to the altar, right? And I thought you took me to the altar because you thought I was demon possessed.
Yeah.
Right? So, so uneventfully, my mom was like, "That's not why I took you to the altar." like it was just yesterday's conversation. That's not why I took you to the altar. I took you to the altar for protection. I said, for protection. I said, well, I've been seeing this energy healer because I'm starting to hear things, I'm starting to see things. And I felt like I was starting to lose my mind. And she was like, well, I'll tell you why. Like, I was kind of pissed.
Matter of fact. So matter of fact.
Right. Tell you why. So she begins to tell me this story. And I'm like, I'm so mad at you, but I understand because whatever, right? Boomers. But she says, and this is the part that I'm like, oh, say this, the quiet parts out loud. She said that I used to go to Sunday school, and there was this woman named Aunt Wanda that I adored. She wasn't an aunt, but she was a Sunday school teacher. Mm. And it was my 2-year-old class. And I swear, everything that I learned about the Bible, I learned in this woman's class. This is the best Bible teaching. Everything I learned from Aunt Wanda, from that children's church days. Mm-hmm. And she said, you were in Aunt Wanda's class, she said, and you would interpret the scriptures to the kids. Like, she said she had a hard time getting the class together, but you would get everybody together and then you would tell them what she said in a language they could understand. And I was like, that kind of sounds like me. And she said, well, the reason why we took you to the altar for protection is because you came screaming out that class one day. You came screaming and hollering outside the class. And when I stopped you, I said, what happened? And you said, Aunt Wanda slapped you. And she was like, I was shocked because, right, that's not my relationship with Aunt Wanda. So she said, I confronted Aunt Wanda with you. Did you slap my baby? What's going on? And she said no, but she had this really funny look on her face. And so she said when she sent me away, she asked Aunt Wanda, like, why is she hysterical and why is she saying that you slapped her in the face? And she said, I did slap her, but in my mind. And she said that it scared her so much that I sensed that I felt that.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly, she said, when we figured out that that's who you were, she said, like us. I was like y'all, right? I was so mad at my mom. She said, then on so many different levels. Anyway, she said, when we figured that out, we figured that the tantrums you were having, the fits you were having, we thought maybe you were lying on people, that you were seeing and perceiving more than you could handle at that age. And so, we asked for protection for you because we know what to do with you. We know what to do with you. And what that felt like to me, like I just have a memory of being detached. I don't know how to explain it. I just remember that there was some type of disassociation that happened. Like I couldn't really feel like I was all the way in my body. I kind of felt like a little high always. Like I was kind of hovering up here, part of me, and I couldn't make a complete connection. So the part that stayed was the sensing, feeling part, right? The empathetic part. Like I tell when somebody was saying one thing and meaning another, but I didn't know what to do with that, you know. And my mom's matter of factness about it all, as she was telling me, was a bit of a relief for her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, I'm like, I've spent all these years just kind of fumbling around, not understanding if I could trust what I was feeling because it was all fragmented. So, with that said, I get back to Kim saying that I'm a medium. It's taking me a while to understand that the way that I perceive is not the way people perceive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if your norm is your norm,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I didn't understand why some concepts were hard for people, or I didn't understand. I didn't know people didn't feel colors or they didn't
Right.
feel inanimate objects. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know until I went to HCC for I went. I was in a composition certification program for about 6 weeks, and I did not know because I come from a family of music that people didn't hear music all the
Yeah.
time. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, so it's just little things about myself that I perceive, well, that's the way the world works. And so coming to terms with that, I stepped in. Kim's been asking for years, when are you going to do a business? When are you going to do your mediumship business? And look, I feel like I'm a reluctant channel. And I say that because I couldn't help but compare myself to what are the people on TV, not Miss Cleo, because we all knew she was fake. But you remember
Oh,
the people who see dead people on TV,
yes.
and they were like address, name, phone number, I was like, well, I don't do that, nor do I want to do that. Like um I don't want to do that. So I had to figure out what about this pathway means to me. Like, what am I doing here? You
Right.
know? Um, and so what I realized very recently, I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. So as I'm in between W-2s, um, I said, you know what? Let me go for it. So I contacted the people in my container and which ended in 2022, but set up a bunch of meetings with them. And I said, okay, Kim gave me this idea. She said, you're gonna answer 3 people's questions. You have an hour. And she's describing this, and it just seemed everything, I guess, as we've discussed, not everything, most things feel like an obstacle at the beginning. They seem so impossible. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. And when I started to do this week, I think I had six sessions this week, 6 sessions this week, and I started to do this. What I realized is what I'm doing is what I'm doing is just describing what I see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I, I fact check it for myself because it's just me and how I process. But when people are asking their questions and they're open, then I've learned that I see a field. To me, it just looks like a bunch of Google images,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like it kind of looks like a cartoon sometimes. And so I just started describing what I see in this field as they ask the questions. And as in this form, as they're talking, when I'm describing it, then they're saying, oh, that means this, or oh, yeah, I did this during this. Like, I was like, oh, okay, this is making sense to you. Okay, I'm starting to see this. And I think, well, what I know for the first time, I feel completely normalized this week. I feel whole. Oh, I now want to cry because I'm a crier.
You
But
are.
I just,
I'm surrounded by people who are criers, and the Lord knows I do well with tears. But I'd be like, okay, well,
cried, I cried.
where's yours? Let it drain, child. Let it drain. Do with it, but have at it.
Oh, I felt so whole because headphones, Gracie, because I realized, okay, my head's not going to spin back and forth, right? That I'm not any different. I'm not possessed. I mean, I do sense when another entity comes in. I can tell if it's male or female, but I feel that anyway, right? I thought that I've been looking at way too much Hollywood. I thought that I guess I would not have control of myself, right? There's something about surrender that I didn't trust. And in that moment, when I kept doing this again and again this week, and people validating for me what that meant for them and how that gave them clarity, then I was like, oh, and it's impactful, and it's helpful, and it's natural for me. And I could not have imagined how much I receive in return.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I've been hunting down people to say, can I do this for you? Because it feels so good to me.
Right.
So it is the very first time in my life that I've understood what service truly is, because I have been giving out of a sense of obligation and duty,
Mm-hmm.
right? A sense of I ain't got no more because I'm not giving from my authentic power. I'm not giving from me. So I now understand that, oh, my everything that I give is supposed to come out of this well. And that's when I feel like I'll never be thirsty again. Mind blown. Mind blown. I was like, how do people you know, mind blown. Now I see.
Was blind, but now I see.
Yeah. But it's like it's just having the courage to be me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just having the courage to be me and my authentic self. And once I started doing this work this week, I realized that the things that I thought were taken from me at that altar, my God, they never left. They
Yeah.
just were in a different form and they stayed in that form until I could receive it. Right. But I thought, because my dreams, that I told were not dreams, they are fantastic. They are. I mean, I vacation, I visit people. Year later, I may go back and revisit. I have like a clothing store. I own part of a mall. I write compositions. I have like this whole fashion line. I'm like, my life is fabulous in several parallel.
I mean,
right?
you could also be getting glimpses of you in other universes and in different, yeah, I mean, you could different dimensions, different universes. It could be you doing all the things.
It's wonderful. And I've just learned, I guess a year ago, that someone was explaining to me that exists here too, right? That exists here too. You have to learn how to bring that or allow that world to come over here, or you wouldn't be able to see it.
You know, I think that's where, at a minimum, Judeo-Christian beliefs and the religions around those two theologies got lost. Because like if you listen to like if you like when you read the Bible, like there are all sorts of stories and scripture around that very thing. Um I mean, even like the Our Father prayer that everybody learned when they were like two, you know,
Mm-hmm.
talks about what's done in heaven, let it be done on earth, right? And so that's the same thing. Whatever you see there, bring it here. And so it's fascinating to me how far away from that we've gotten with the dogma of religion.
Yes. Yes. Not to mention that it doesn't profit, right? If my religion, or if my form of control is religion, right?
Right.
Catholic Church, we're talking about you and the funnel of Christianity, right? I don't need you to be empowered with how you're connected to God. I need you to extricate God in my image so that I can have authority and control over you,
Right.
right? So it does not benefit or profit your abuser from you having a direct line to who God is.
The source. Yep.
Right. At the end of the day, that's all that's happening.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and I learned, I don't know, I have to fact check me on this. Tituba, I haven't researched her. Apparently, the Salem witch trials was about an African woman, one of our ancestors, who was trying to teach them. She was a seer, and so they started like, witch, let's burn all the witch.
I would not believe that at all.
I think because it wasn't, they didn't have the word nigga, they were just saying witch. I
Basically.
pretty much, I
Basically.
think
Basically. Yes. I would say that sounds accurate. I don't
that.
have no points and no evidence, but it sounds accurate. Like it resonates with me. Right? Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's ultimately, I mean, you know, that's how civilizations and cultures get destroyed. You know, like they go in and they annihilate the shaman, they annihilate the seers, the dreamers, the all of those things, and then they take away the relics, and then they take away the writings, and then like I mean that's the whole that's the playbook of colonization.
It's true. That is very, 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 very true. I guess well, the interesting thing is, right, in this past 2010 to 2022, so in the past 12 years, and especially the past five, it seems like me saying, okay, because in Christianity, I guess the term would be prophet, and secular, it would be a channel or medium. Like these things, I realize are not like, oh my good. Like there seems to be an acceptance on a level that is unprecedented. Um,
Use the right word for the group you're talking to.
yeah,
I'm telling you, because that's what it's fascinating to me how much people say. And don't get me wrong, it's certainly enough people out here who faking it, trying to get them $5 on a Bentley. But it's fascinating to me how many people who claim to be like religiously minded, spiritually minded. And I'm like, so if Moses came here and turned a snake into a staff and a staff into a snake,
it's true.
y'all would not be ready.
Oh, and this is my thing. This is the part that I struggled with, right? Because when I'm giving these I call them channel and intuitive guidance sessions. When I'm giving these sessions and people are getting their own breakthroughs and their evidence, right? And validations. I'm thinking about how many, let's just use Joel Osteen, why not? Everybody else says. I'm thinking of how many pick a number. What I feel like God really had to help me with, right? Because I was like, I don't see how I'm uncomfortable making money off of this exchange, right? I totally bought into the every part of me bought into the poverty mindset, but it's something deeper than that. And maybe I don't know the source, but
yeah,
I guess because I've seen so much spiritual abuse,
mm-hmm.
and God had to get with me and say, do you see these churches, all these churches in the name of God?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to do, they don't have to do, there's not even a small enough percent of what I've just said that these prophets of old have done. They don't have to do not even 1% of that.
Right.
And we are so far away from who and what God is that people are lining up, myself included in the past, because we're so thirsty and so starving for an experience of how do I connect to God? How do I connect to me? And a lot of these places are not offering true connection to source, nor do they have to prove it.
Right.
And in Old Testament, you have to prove it or you die.
That's correct.
Period.
You had
So
people's interpreting dreams for people, became they
yes,
became the king's best friend because they could interpret a dream.
yes.
Um, yeah, all of that. All of that.
So
But
that part I was like, that is disheartening. Go ahead.
well, and and maybe
What
because
happened to us that we don't require that? What happened to us that we're looking at personality and profits over the real sustenance of
people don't ask for receipts, they just want the social media snazzy, dazzy, sparkly stuff. Like if you can give them that, they good. They don't care whether your stuff paying out or not. And I mean, that's evident in even, regular secular stuff that, you have people out here calling themselves coaches and business people and all this other mess, ain't got receipt number one that says they have helped anybody actually like through their coaching, through their entrepreneurial studies and whatever, like that have actually made somebody achieve whatever their outcomes were. And people be out here just following and reposting and sharing and showing up at workshops, paying big dollars, and no receipts.
wow. Wow. You think it's well, okay. So this brings up this point. This brings up this point. Two things. So Kim Pence, the one thing that I love about you both is that you are so secure in who you are, right? That you guys are so free to allow adults to be adults and make choices on their own time, whenever you're ready, whenever you get there, right? Your journey. I love how I be wallowing in the mud and I call you and you're like, I'm here, you know.
I'm ready when you are. That's my tagline. I'm ready when you are.
So I love the fact that um you in business and her in this spiritual world um walk tandem in tandem, right? Understanding the human journey, but she's relentless in, no, I see what I see, just let me know when you're ready to receive it, like it is what it is. If you don't want to get into it in this lifetime, next lifetime, whatever.
Lifetime. It'll be right there. You pick up right where you left off, right where you left off, and be just as frustrated, wondering why.
I know. So I was like, I gotta get this. This is too painful. This is too painful. The resistance is too painful. The second thing brings up Ray Gunn, and let me tell you, I think she's a master because I think she was advertising. ray gun with the Olympics in breakdancing. Did you see this?
I cannot. You talking about the little woman who got all the memes now?
Yes.
On flow, shivering basically instead of breaking
Yes.
her. Okay.
Epileptic fix.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, you know what? Not only does she have a PhD in breakdance, she's got a master class. She's got a master's apparently in marketing because laugh at me once, laugh at me twice. Everybody's saying her name. Everybody's saying her name. People gonna look at this funky book, whatever. Right. It may not be the attention you want, but
I need
she's
that
got her brain going.
money. It's not
You
enough.
said what?
I said I need that attention to translate into money. Not enough to be a punchline and a meme seen around the world 4 million times. That's not enough.
Oh, oh, that is a good point. That is a good point. That is a good point. And I was looking at how that has everything to do with the big black tent.
Yes.
And part of me cried. Well, internally at least. I wouldn't cry about that, but because I thought, was there a homage to those who started the movement in the late 70s and 80s? Was there a homage to those who have created this, what they want to call sport now? Like Turbo, like I expected them to line up, get theirs. That's the part that's disheartening to me. Like, this ain't right.
That is correct. That is correct. And it was just yesterday, so it's not like it's a sport that's been around for forever, since the turn of the century, not the turn of this century, but the turn of the previous century. None of that. Like this is fresh.
This is literally my lifetime, our childhood. Yeah.
Correct.
There's movies about it. Wasn't like they were doing it just on the corners, whole movies.
I mean, I remember my brother trying to spin in the living room, and I'm like, dude, it is carpet. You are not gonna turn around, but okay. Whatever floats your boat. Yeah, no brief. And what's interesting is that even the winners, when interviewed, the medalists didn't acknowledge where like anything. Nothing.
I think that's what made my heart sad. And number two, business wise, is there something legally, some policy that can be passed, something called cite the source? Seriously, like where Black America, we're like, you have to cite the source for wherever you get this from.
Let me tell you why it's not gonna work. Because Black America is not good at gatekeeping. So as we all know, and I'm gonna say this, and when people listen, they probably it's gonna be hellish, probably. But Black America invented hip hop.
Oh yeah.
Invented hip hop. Not rap, because I'll tell you, William Shakespeare could be considered a rapper, not rap. But the culture of hip hop came out of Black America. You let people tell it now, they trying to attribute it to every other group known in history. Brazilians trying to get in on it. The other day, not long ago, Busta Rhymes talking about Jamaicans. There's some Hispanic people who I was like, no, boo. Not the hip hop part. That's us right here. But we aren't good gatekeepers of things. We are not good. So the cite your source ain't gonna help because we're not good gatekeepers. We let anybody. They let Bo Derek say she invented cornrows. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you on that. It don't even make sense. It don't make sense.
Wow.
So that is us. By the way, I haven't eaten most of the day, so I'm snacking, everyone.
Oh, this is so good. I'm surprised I didn't eat something. I mean, all day. You are so good.
All
You're
day.
so good. One of these meetings, you will see me braiding hair. Because that's a whole nother topic of with
That's a topic worth discussing.
black Black hair is a full-time job. I want somebody to pay me to braid my own kid's head. It's a full-time job.
I'm natural and you're natural, and it is not for the faint of heart. I'm gonna tell you.
It's not. I see why my mom's. I don't know. Did you have a perm when you were little? I had a perm at
Yeah.
4 or 5. Okay.
I think I got a relaxer officially when I was like 7 or 8. And then I quickly transitioned to a Jerry curl by the time I was like in 4th or 5th grade. I know. And then
I wanted one. Look, I'm laughing, but I wanted one so bad.
I was like, I want a Jerry curl, god darn it. Um, Mainly I was just trying to do anything. And I'm still this way to this day, which is why natural hair and me, I'm like, I love you hair, but let my stylist decide she retiring. I don't know what's I'm gonna shave my head. I will walk around here at it because what I'm not about to do is do my hair. Um,
Do you?
no, don't. So yeah, so Jerry curls, and I was like, that's easy. It's every 6 weeks. I ain't gotta go sit in the salon because I'm horrible at sitting for long periods of time in a salon while somebody does things. Like, it's not gonna work for me. My stylist knows this right now. Even when I get 2-strand twists, I'd be like, look, we're gonna wash and blow it out, and you can flat twist it with 2 braids. That's the max braids you get. You get 1, 2, you get 2. And then after that, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna come back next week, and then you just twist it, do 2-strand twist. We're there for another week. Oh yeah, I'm horrible. I'm absolutely horrible. What I'm not supposed to do is this is why me and like locks and like I love, love, love sister locks. Love them. They are gorgeous. And when I talked to that woman for some sister locks, a client of mine had some. I was like, your sister locks are so pretty. Who's your person? Da 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 da. Talked to the woman. That woman said it was gonna take like 32 hours. And
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Who and what? 30? Who, what is happening? So then I was like, okay, well, maybe you can come to the house and do it. And I don't have to like come to the shop. She was like, yeah, no, I can come to the house. And then I was like, 32, I don't care where.
Yeah. Look, and it's crazy because I've locked my boy's hair, lock, which started as a behavior incentive during the divorce and well during the custody battle. And so now they both have long locks. However, when it's look, I do it like once every 3 months or whatever. And my eldest, who has it doesn't seem like a lot, but every time I get in there, I've broken it up over 3 days because I'm like, I'm tired. This is insane. What are we doing here? But Gracie's my little girl, right? And so I have to. She has to represent, right? But it takes, yeah, it takes a while.
When COVID first started,
Uh-huh.
they shut down all the salons and all the.
You look like Nancy Pelosi. You were like with your hair not dripping.
I was, I'm not usually one to advocate people breaking the law, but let me tell you about how I was talking to my stylist, and I was like, look, whatever I need to pay you, and on whatever cadence we need to be on, I'm not washing my own hair. So you can either come here and violate the law and wash my hair, wear all the mask and the hazmat suit if you need to. I'm fine with that. Or you can wait until this thing gets lifted and know that I will never have done my hair, and you are gonna have to detangle that bad boy. I just want you to know that. So you pick your poison, but you're gonna pick one today. We were sneaking around when my stylist was between sweet. I'm telling you, I don't play when my stylist was between sweets. I was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm gonna go get a suite. I went and got my own little suite because I was like, what we about to do at the little courtyard, whatever salon suite places. When I got my own little suite, I was like, so you meet me right here and do this hair because that's what we're not doing is my own hair. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not. It's not.
Well, I look, I understand because it is a serious. commitment. It is as big as a commitment as being a parent. And I'm serious.
I believe it. I believe it. I believe, I believe.
Which is why this normally, as you know, I keep my hair very low and short, but I said, okay, I'm gonna grow out the top. And I couldn't remember why I didn't grow out my hair. That's why.
But here's the thing now. So when you wear a scarf and you tie it, it looks all dainty and cute and whatever. My head is too big for that kind of stuff. I can't like the little I tried it, the little wrap part, it'd be like this because I need like an actual whole scarf to get around my head. And it's a lot. I'm like, I cannot walk around with a 3-foot bun because a whole scarf.
Alex, your hair is not big. Your head is not big like that.
Regular hats don't fit. I'm okay with that. I have come to terms. There's a big brain in there. I'm okay with that. But regular hats and stuff like that, they don't fit. I can't just go in and be like, oh, look at this cute little fedora. I'm gonna put it on. Nope, not happening. It's gonna
No,
be
not
right.
child size head with a lot of mama brain underneath, a lot of remapping that I need to get back to the place with these kids. Oh my gosh. But yeah, our hair is serious. It's
So
serious
you
business. But we've
shared
come a long way.
back real quick. So you shared what was scary.
Oh yes. Yes. Oh yes. So I share was scary. You said what?
Shared it still seems scary.
No, I feel better about it. Now I'm into another phase that feels hopeful,
Okay.
which is I really enjoyed because I'm in my favorite place, my closet. Love, 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 love my closet. I love tiny, it's kind of spectrumy, but I love tiny cubbies. Like I'm a cubby person. I like being tiny. I like feeling closed in like I'm in a womb. I like tiny spaces. And I was in here and I was, you know, in between the clients, and then I stopped and then I went down to the pool for 30 minutes. Then I came back up and then I made myself I was like, could this be my life?
Right.
Could this be my, not stressing out, not packaging myself in, not, right? It takes a lot of energy not to see, a whole lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to be in a space where, right, your genius leans this way, but you are only, right, asked for about this much of it. And is there something that dies inside?
Mhm.
Right. So I have to say it's the first week that I felt completely normal in a sense of how I'm created. I got to do what I'm created to do. And so I thought, wow, this feels so good. So now I'm into the um acceptance phase, because there's something about that I'm still walking through, accepting the grandness, accepting the good, because my, like, that hadn't been my background. So it's almost like if you're used to a certain amount of trauma, then your body kind of wants to default to that setting. Um, and so now I'm like, no, this is good. This is okay. This can be my life. Well, let's just claim it. This is my life. I really, really enjoy this. And it's just an extension of who I am. And I thought about you, and I thought about Kim, and I thought, oh, they're doing an extension of what is just them. Like, am I the only one having this struggle like this? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's why you guys appear so confident and at ease, because you're actually doing what you're created to do. Go figure.
Figure. Go figure. Go figure. And the thing that I don't want people to think is that just because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, still don't mean everything gonna be easy peasy. I just want to make that clear.
Yes, yes, yes.
Still,
No, not everything's easy. I
yeah,
still have my own anxieties. I still have to deal with people.
right. Still have to God help me with dealing with people. And I have a
It's
whole
still people. I'm still a person. I still have, as you hear, kids that interrupt meetings. I still have children to feed. I still have to figure out budgets. I still have to, right? Like, I'm still on
it's
this
all
earth.
the same. The only difference though, at least for me, is that it's, it's almost like the way I think about it is like when you look at a river and the current that's underneath, that like the river is flowing, it's moving. There's movement in the river, it's going where it's supposed to go, but that doesn't mean that like that it's calm necessarily from nature's perspective, right? But it means that the river has its purpose, and its intended purpose gives it ease in the place where it's supposed to be, but not that it is easy. So that's kind of, I mean, that's how I kind of think about it. Because somebody, and you and to me, the best thing is to know yourself, 100% know yourself, and um know what creates that sense of ease for you.
Can you say more about that?
I mean, that's just, I mean, just like, you said that you finally kind of received everything. And I also think your childhood, and I don't mean like whether you were raised with loving parents or parents who did whatever, like, I mean, like the things that you experienced in your own, whatever amount of autonomy you could create for yourself as a child, whatever you experienced in that is very indicative of what you should be doing as an adult.
Mm, mm.
Right. So you mentioned that could hear things that people hadn't really articulated yet, and you had a sense of kind of other beings present when they were like, even if even if you weren't like a medium where you wanted to channel it spiritually, even if you were in business, right? The whatever perfect, like in education, I'm positive that manifested as a result of like in your daily movements in your profession of education.
Yeah, it is.
And so to me that like whatever you were doing when you were a kid, so my mom and my dad, if he were here, would tell you the story, like on our road trip to California, the car broke down. I was like 6, and we went to this little car auto shop repair place to get the car fixed. The owner, who was the mechanic, was out in the garage. I was in his little shop. The phone was ringing. I answered the phone and started, taking messages and telling people when they could be scheduled for things and should they buy and what kind of special you might be able to get if you would have. Like, I had a whole thing going at 6. At 6. And I earned my first dollar. Doing in
I
that.
said, she pull out that dollar, I'm gonna pass out.
My, my mom has it and it's framed and it says my little first dollar and all of that. But like that is indicative. I solve business problems today. Like that is what I do for a living, and I get immense joy out of doing it. So like the things that whatever you're doing as a kid, the things that had a gravitational pull on you as a kid, likely is very indicative of what you're going to be as an adult. As a kid, and I really didn't like my voice. I thought my voice was very deep. It was manly. I was hanging out with like girls in junior high and high school had like little pipsqueaky voices, whatever, right? And I was like, damn, my voice is so deep. I sound like a dude. People like it's ridiculous. And people started telling me, like, once I became an adult, they would always ask me, they're like, are you in radio? Because you have a great radio voice. And I'm like, no, and no, I don't think I'm gonna be in radio. Right. Fast forward some years, and there I was, and I'm still doing podcasts and PBS and all things. So, I mean, again, those things that have a pull on you, have a significant imprint on you from your childhood, probably are directionally setting for you to be able to find your ease, like the path that you should be in to just flow.
To just flow. I like that. The flow. Yes, I did use this in as a special needs educator. Yes, I realized took me a minute. Um, but I realized I had to because a lot of my students, well, most of the students, right, didn't come in speaking, and if they did, they definitely couldn't advocate for themselves. So having to navigate them to figure out what they needed or what activated them was was the job. And the anger I felt when, this took me a while too, to realize that others
Have that gift.
don't have that and may violate that because they don't think it doesn't matter, there's no difference, right? They don't see them as having preferences or boundaries,
Right.
because they can't advocate. So yeah, I realized I actually love doing that with them, but hate the system in which I was doing that in.
Right.
Um, yeah, which could be said for a lot of industries. So well intentioned versus the machine that is running it, where profit is put over people. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so glad for you.
And I was even nervous, even telling you, because part of me was like, oh, one more business. Right? I was like, oh, I got to do
The
better with my
person
own self compassion.
I mean, again, going to church and being in the church, and they'd be like, at the end for benediction, grab somebody's hand, whatever, all this mess. It's the reason why I don't hug people to this day. It's the reason why I'm very protective of like my personal space and all that. Because one time when I was like 6 or 7, I grabbed this one, a woman on one side, my mom on the other side, and whatever that woman was going through, I don't know what kind of chaos was happening in her life, but the amount of immense sadness that she had flowed directly into my being. And I was hysterical. Like I was just unconsolable. And my mom did not know what had and I couldn't really articulate that it came from the woman. Like I didn't even know how to put that into terms. But it shaped me to this day, and I'd be like, I don't really want to hug. You just stay over there.
Wow.
Um, so
Love to put some
yeah,
impression on you.
I'm not a person like it's fascinating to me, and I think this goes to humanity's hubris um about how much we try to put people's experiences into a known entity box. And I'm not that person. I remember a guy called the radio show I was on, and he wanted to have a whole conversation with me about how he thinks he was in college, and he was like, he thinks somebody implanted something in him, and he could feel it, and I was like, dude, that may have had like I want to tell you nobody came into your room and planted. I don't know that it is pop. Have you seen our government and the government around the world? I'm not one to say we are incapable of nothing because we do all the craziness. So yeah, so I'm when people tell me, my mom the other day said she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and there was a man in the bathroom. And
Mm.
she was concerned and she was like, he had a refrigerator and he wanted me to get into the refrigerator and I didn't want to get in the refrigerator. And then he closed the door behind me. And I was like, and you're positive you weren't dreaming. You were awake and you went to the bathroom and all that. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, you clearly knew that the man wasn't there to harm you because you would have screamed for me or Martin. So that's the first thing. And I was really intrigued by it. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe you should have gotten a refrigerator. Maybe he was going to teleport you somewhere to a. Maybe he was going to. I was like,
I'm
did you?
like, hey, he was getting the.
I'm like, maybe he was an angel and he was trying to tell you something. Like, I'm just like, there are so many experiences out there that people have. Um, you can't possibly in your little finite infant mind
Right.
understand all the infinite possibilities of experiences that an individual can have. So no, I don't discount nothing. You could tell me you saw purple cows jump over the moon, and I'd be like, and maybe there are. I have not seen purple cows, but that does not mean there are not purple cows, right? Because again, this goes to like we're so quick to be like, and there are 700 species in the ocean. I'm like, how do you know it's only 700 species in the ocean? That's the only species you done found in the ocean. It could be 22 million species that just don't want to be found yet by you.
Ah,
It's
22. No, you're right. It's like more ocean than land. So, or as my son says, there's land in the ocean. So
right. That's
damn Google generation.
so, I mean, people, I will always, no matter what you think the crazy is, I will always allow you, your experience is your experience. And I'm not going to be the one to tell you that what you experienced is not what you experienced, even if I didn't experience it.
And then it got me thinking to what technically, um, right, because there's the scripture Bible would two agree, there I am in the midst of thee. And I like in my experience, the validation would come through my daughter, Gracie. And so I thought, wow, I wonder how many times we've been convinced of something that is quote unquote real because we've all experienced it. But that's not to say that something is A or B, you know? So no, no, you're right. There's a lot out of here. And since I started during the same time, I think what gave me a lot of validation was watching that podcast, Next Level Soul.
Okay.
And when I would hear people, have you seen that podcast?
Mm.
Scott Austin has this podcast, and people get on there and talk about all sorts of experiences. But I remember listening to people, I'm like, oh, that's the thing. Oh, that's the thing. Okay, that's a like. So I think a lot of people are having the courage to come out and say what they see or hear, and most people usually start with, "I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the only one experiencing this," or so I was like, wow, because media has been controlled so long with just this, and this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it's interesting.
and I mean, even if you are the only one, right? Even if there's nobody else who's experienced what you've experienced, it's still your experience. Doesn't make you crazy, doesn't make you, whatever. Now, I'm not saying that you are not crazy. I'm just saying it doesn't.
She's like, wait a minute now.
There are instances where there are people who need mental health. There are also people who have had legitimate experiences, right? So one, they're not mutually inclusive of each other. So, just because you're the only one, again, you look at the stories of the Bible and things like that, and I just am like, Noah's, whether people call it a premonition or whether God really spoke to him or whatever, there was a man who built a giant boat and survived the storm. Um, and the things that happen that are inexplicable, you left the house instead of leaving the house when you normally leave the house based on your pattern. You decided to do something different. The way I met Kim. The
Oh,
way
she told me about that very recently
the way I met
at
Kim.
the,
Way,
forgot the store, right? She's like the
yeah.
store.
So Martin and I had gone to we've been invited to a yoga nidra. And it was my yoga instructor at the time had told me, she was like, I had like the shoulder pain that just was not. quitting. It would not quit. And she was like, it sounds like your shoulder, it might be energetic, it might not be physical. And I was like, could be, maybe I could be holding things in my shoulder. So she was like, you should come to this yoga nidra. I have a healer who's coming. Her name is Kim. I was like, boop, boop. Okay, talk to me more person because we can't be letting stuff just flow freely and porously through my soul. Okay, we're not doing it. And she was like, no, 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 come, I promise, it's nothing like that. I was like, okay. So me and Martin went, and Martin really, really liked her. I didn't really experience anything specifically, but Martin really liked her. And my yoga instructor told me that her wife had almost pretty much been paralyzed, spent about 2 years with Kim, and you would never know. She'd be up walking around, she doing yoga, she more flexible than me. And so I was okay, well, maybe I'll go see what it's about. But weeks passed by, and I, like a lot of things that I just really don't want to do, I just was like, whatever, I get to it, I get. And Martin even kept asking me. Martin was like, when are you gonna set up an appointment for us to go? And I want to go see her too, whatever, whatever. I was like, okay, whatever, I'll get to it. Didn't get to it. Several weeks go by. And for people who live in Houston, you might know that there is a Sprouts located on I-10 in Yale.
Oh, yeah.
I live in City Center at I-10 in the Beltway, way away from I-10 in Yale. It's like 25 minutes away, 25 minutes away. We also have a Sprouts literally 5 minutes from the house. We didn't go to the Sprouts that's 5 minutes from the house. We were like, let's go to the Sprouts on I-10 in Yale. Who knows why? We were just like, let's go. So I'm like, cool, we're going. So we go to the Sprouts on I-10 in Yale. We go in, we walk in, we go into the little bread area, and Martin says, hey, that's the woman who was at that's the woman who was at the Nidra class. And I was like, who? And I turn around and there's Kim. And we say our pleasantries and we're like, hey, how are you? Really good class, thanks, and all this. And we continue shopping, and Kim leaves. So Martin was like, I think that's a sign. You need to make us. So I finally go make the appointment. And when I went to my session with her, just a little bit of chat and stuff like that. I was like, so do you go to the Sprouts often? Like, is that your grocery store or whatever? And she was like, oh no, I don't shop at Sprouts at all. I was like, well, what were you? She was like, I've never been to a Sprouts. And I was like, well, what were you doing there that day? And she was like, I don't know. My guides told me to go. So I was really just in there standing around wondering what was going to happen. And I was like,
wow. Wow. And I would have never met Kim if you would have never met her. I probably would have killed a couple of people.
yep.
Been in a jail, Harris County, Lord.
I know, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so I mean, all the things that are inexplicable, we could have gone to any grocery store. We could have gone to the Sprouts by our house. We could have, I mean, you just think about all the things that seem like coincidences, but are really something kind of guiding you in the space that you can't really recognize at the time or whatever. And so yeah, so it bears allowing people to have their experience and express that they have the experience without diminishing the fact that they had the experience.
Had the experience. Be heard and to be heard and to be seen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I you know what? I know that's a human experience, but I don't know. There's something about, right, my mom's generation, because not when I really talked about her, I learned some things, right? Some things that we had never exchanged before. And she was revealing to me, right, you couldn't say those things back then. And she said I was accused of being a witch. In high school, she said, because I would say things that I didn't know I was saying about people, and they were like, "How do you know that stuff?" So she was like, "You just learn to keep things to yourself because your life depended on it,
Right.
right? Especially for us, your life depended on it." So I was like, "This is so interesting." So who knows, right? Culturally wise, ancestral line wise, what's needed to come through for eons, or at least for 400 or 500 years that that is pent up. Um, but I am glad to be in this era where you can lead as a woman, you can lead as in the spiritual way that you need to, and we're not um, killed for it in this land. I'm not saying it's
I
like
was,
that everywhere.
I was going to say, in this moment, in this land, at this time.
In this time, so yeah, so I am thankful for the evolution as it comes, and not only that, that even if it isn't widely accepted where somebody is, that at least the knowing the knowing is enough, right? Because a lot of us think that we're just crazy, and we dismiss core truths, that can be healing even into ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't really. I was actually in Sunday school, um, Gracie's grandma's church, and I was in there. I love me some Sunday school, still love me some Sunday school. And I said, I'm gonna just sit here. I'm not gonna say nothing, until I feel prompted. I'm not gonna say nothing. Like I have to tell myself that. But there was an opportunity where I was able to describe that I believe in this generation, at least the goal I have for my children, is for them to recognize the spirit of God no matter where it shows up, right?
Right.
We so pigeonholed it, right? Wherever God shows up, if the Bible says that God can speak to you through the ass of a donkey, right?
That's
That
correct.
wherever God shows up, that we understand and hear that truth for ourselves,
It's,
right?
it's again, I don't understand how the people who proclaim to be the moral high ground of Christendom and spirituality and all these things and are so dismissive if it does not fit the box. I again, like I I remember a lot of things happened to me when I was like 6 and 7. But anyway, I remember going to a McDonald's, and this is when Ronald McDonald was a big thing, and they were giving away a pink Huffy bicycle. And people always, like, to this day, people wonder where my faith got fortified at. It got fortified on that day in time. It is an indelible mark. I will never, ever, 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 ever doubt ever. Um, and they were giving away a pink Huffy bike. And I told my mom, I was like, I'm gonna fill out, you get one little slip, I'm gonna fill out a slip, I'm gonna put it in. We can't leave McDonald's until they do the drawing. And she was like, okay, we'll sit here, you can eat your little fries, whatever. And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna pray that I win this bicycle. And my mom, who was a very godly woman, knows the Bible, has certainly prayed and put protection over me for my whole life, was like, Natalie, no, that's not what you use prayer for. That's not, don't bother God with that. And I was like, didn't he say, ask and ye shall receive?
You're like, my faith is activated.
Right? I was like, didn't he say, ask and you get it? And she was like, but not the bicycle. She was like, we can buy you a bicycle. It's fine. I was like, nope, I'm praying for my bicycle. Leave me alone. So I went into deep prayer and was like, dear Lord, please give me a bicycle. The bicycle is great. And you said you can make it happen and you can make all the, I had the whole thing. And lo and behold, out of the 9,000 gajillion kids that were there, I won a pink Huffy bicycle.
Wow. What did your mom do?
She was a little rattled. She was, was a little rattled.
The angel showed up at us. I bet she put some requests in there at night.
Right? But yeah, so I mean, like, and that, I mean, it seems trivial. You're like, it was a bicycle, but in that moment in time, I realized, and to this day, I am just like, whatever whatever I ask, it's gonna happen. it will in fact occur, period. So
Oh, I love that. That whole that God is my supply lesson. The kids.
yep. Oh, yeah, because you were just talking about that, and I love it. And that's why I was like, all right, son number two, get it. I loved
That
it.
God is my supply. I'm like, oh, kids, like I have that for the tragedy. Like I got to work on that. I got to work on that. Like I know, like unfortunately, a lot of people we like, oh yeah, I believe in war. I believe in like all the stuff you see on the news. But turning that around. But it's interesting because I'm right. I'm teaching my kids out of faith,
Yeah,
right? Not necessarily out of my own experience a lot of times, but teaching them out of faith where whether I'm fearful or not. And because kids don't have any hangups, because they're wide open, it is so with them. And so that actually happened with my second born, but a week before, my eldest was asking me for something, and I was literally in a conversation about how God is his supply, and that when he ever asks for, you need to depend on, doing this whole speech. And as he's saying that, um, Gracie's grandma walks up, and she got it from a table that somebody just put stuff on the table with a baseball glove and a baseball. And literally in that conversation, and I was like, this is what you've been asking for all summer, right here. Like I got them private baseball lessons. And I was like, okay, I use the money for that. We got to figure something else for the club. But here it came. And I was like, that can't be a coincidence. So between his baseball bat and glove and this kid getting $31 over a Connect Four business,
yep. And got a pipeline now. Got a
and
pipeline in front off.
what is Oh my God. Yes. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, I gotta up my faith. Like here I am shepherding them out, like, oh God.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I think we have to just and maybe that's what happens, maybe that's the attempt, right? When you're kids that the world, the environment, potentially even people that you know and love and care about essentially beat it out of you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We literally clip the wings to God and faith and conditions. I never taught Grace. I was so fascinated by her, the way that she showed up. I never had a chance to teach her about God because she was teaching me.
Mhm.
And she would just say things like, she would just have these conversations with me, and she would say, oh mommy, God is so beautiful. I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, God has very dark skin and long gray hair. And she would always say she this, she that, she this. I was like, okay, well, like you're saying, like not my experience, but and she would just kind of act out stuff and say things that I had to learn in church. And I realized as she's gotten into grandma's church, and she's gotten to this place and this place, that her language changes, right? Or she thinks she can't have this until she has this. And I remind her, like, no, remember what you told me. But yeah, how that programming comes in, right? And you start to separate yourself from who you are, that categorization that we do, right, in the material world.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real thing, and it can present serious problems if you don't keep a spark of that alive,
Yeah.
burning somewhere, even if it's just a little ember. It ain't got to be stoked a whole lot. Again, right? I mean, to your point, you do you there is we are it's the word how do you be in the world but not of the world, right? As the scripture says, right? So like there is a part of you that that's trying to figure out how to move in this environment. Like one of the things I talk to Kim about all the time, aside from me not liking humans and why, is the construct that's here. Like internally, I don't believe in the construct. The entire thing that exists that we consider, and people have wondered, like, why I'm so okay with like dying and death and whatever. Like, I don't have the same experiences that other people have when people die or whatever. And it's just because I'm just not, this construct is just not, it's not what's up. So I
I
don't know
love it.
what game they plugged in for us, but this is
You
not
sound
the,
like a reluctant human. I sound like a reluctant channel. You sound like a reluctant human. Like
that's
something better.
podcast number 3, Reluctant Human. So I talk to Kim a lot about like the construct and how like on a daily basis, it's very frustrating because the things that people that we've put boundaries on as a society, and I get it, we are in a societal contract, and in order to make things work, we've all made open agreements that are known and also unknown, unspoken agreements. We all agree that 2 + 2 is 4. Is 2 + 2 really 4? Hell no. We don't know what to, we don't even know if there is a 2 and another 2 to give you 4. But we've all decided, for the sake of the foundation of math and being able to standardize on something, we've decided that 2 + 2 is 4, right? And sometimes it can get really frustrating because the obstacles and the things that people put in place, you're just like, it don't even have to be like this. It does not have to be like, you don't have to act like this. You don't have to do this thing like you do. And you just really want everybody else to come to those same conclusions. Like, you look at like corporate America and how people have chosen to climb the corporate ladder, and sometimes it can get real dog eat dog, and you just be like, it don't even have to be like the conversations we have in politics about whether there's enough resource. I'm like, y'all, it's infinite resources. I promise you, it is infinite resources. If we are good stewards of the resources, the resources will steward us. I promise you. And so, we put all these things and these boundaries and rules and regulations, and I'm just like, sometimes I just be like, child Kim, I'm gonna need you to like give me something, give me a diamond to look at in the sky or something. I need some activity because it's this is not it. This is not it. So yeah, I mean, and I think kids, like people wonder, like I always think, and this is my own personal belief, I have nothing to back it up, but like kids come out and they cry, and the expectation is that they're supposed to cry. Like, if they're not crying, everybody believes medically something's wrong. But if you think about it, right, in my belief, you got dropped into a hellhole of a ghetto place. And I don't care what family you born into, what, what city and state, what socioeconomic income you incoming in at, you got dropped into a hellhole of a ghetto place. And then you got pushed out, and people think you're supposed to be happy about that. I'm not happy. Nobody happy. Of course,
Sarah, my Gracie was just fine. I don't care what anybody says. She was so happy to be with me. She like, yeah, right, ask. But did you see that meme of that baby that came out with a look of disgust? Like, think his mom looked around and had that look of disgust. Did you see that baby?
I, I understand. Okay. I just want you to know, young children who are 2 seconds old, I get it. I understand. But they are to me the most connected
Yeah, they are.
source as anything could be. And you look at kids like as toddlers and like as babies and stuff like that, and they got their own language and we don't understand it, but they get around others that are their same thing, and they really be having whole conversations, and they be laughing and they have emotion associated with it. And I'm like, so they know what they talking about. Just because you don't know what they talking about don't mean that they don't have a language. Like, and then we beat that out of them. So whatever that given language was. We're like, you need to learn this language. And here's how you put a noun and a verb together. And then there are adjectives and pronouns and all the things and subject verb agreement. And like it's a whole thing. And to get back to that is very difficult after years and years and years.
It's very, unless, right, unless you are, I don't want to use the word woke because they've corrupted it so bad, but unless you are conscious enough um and resourceful enough to lead your child through
Yes,
their truth,
correct.
right? That's the goal. Even though there's all these influences, um, I think that's the goal because, like you said, whatever activated you as a child, that's literally what we're returning, what
Yep.
we're returning back to.
Yep.
Right? We were just told we couldn't make money off of that thing,
Correct.
maybe, and we believed it.
Correct.
Or we were told we were crazy. Whatever the family secret was, whatever
Right. Right.
that was, when you do that, you remind me of your sorry did, like
I,
whatever that was.
that was ever that.
We right get into the program of this is what you should be doing. Like there's this neurosurgeon I listened to, I think it went viral, and it went viral because he's a neurosurgeon. He quit doing neurosurgery after 10 years, talking about how miserable he was that, we're fixing on things that don't need to be fixed. And usually people heal themselves. And even after you fix them, if they aren't aware enough, they go back to the problem. And what am I doing anyway? And, he had his breakthrough, breakdown and then breakthrough. But I was like, wow, that's everywhere. Like, what is the source of my joy, my energy, my peace, right? What is my pathway before someone told me what it was,
Right.
you know? Um, yeah, but kids, they show up knowing it in the elementary school. You watch kids navigate to their way. They navigate and their genius is on display, right? They don't know how to hide it. It's just obvious it is. And then we go, like you said, about the business of you have to sit here for 8 hours. You have to eat food and you have to, yeah, you distort the entire process. And maybe that has only been around for several hundred years in some places, right? In America, a lot more recent than that, maybe, right? Maybe about 100 years total with us, 125 maybe, before, slavery, But for most people, it was homework, and learning what your parents did to shelter yourself. And if you're a whittler, you whittled. If if you sang for the village.
Right.
And people found joy in that, and not all this stuff that we're accumulating that we don't need the next year.
Right.
So
Right. Right. Which is where people get their attachment, sadly.
yeah, which is where people get, there's no satisfaction in the external, really,
Yeah,
right?
not at
No
all.
matter how good the ice cream tastes, it's not gonna do you.
Not going to do you. And again, and if you are of the so I think we may have had this conversation about the movie The Matrix. And
Yes, what about
that,
it?
yeah, when that movie came out in the early 90s, late 90s, whatever it was, I went to the theater. I kid you not. I went to the theater 12 times within the first 2 weeks of that movie opening to watch that movie because it was, I felt like I had been seen watching them. I was like, oh my goodness, they see somebody in Hollywood that seen me and decided to make a movie. Go black woman, go, who wrote the real script. Go girl. Uh, like, because I was like, you say the ice cream, and I'm like, that's like, again, that's your own reality, that ice cream exists, that you eat it, and that it tastes like something specific.
Did it taste like something? Yes, the whole taste. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, right? The whole taste thing, the whole flavor thing, the whole, yeah.
Yep. And
Interesting.
and even that is like a somewhat guided activity about flavor profiles and what you're tasting, what you're not tasting, all those things, right? So it's just it's again, it's one more thing that as we grow into large humans, that we have to like try to sift through in order to open yourself to experiences that are different, that may not have followed the the thinking that you've always had on something, but that still resonate with you.
Yes. What a serious yeah. And to find, and I don't know, I think a part of this journey, I don't know what it's been like for you. A part of the journey, I guess, is sifting through, because it's a full spectrum, right? Um belief in community, because it goes back to community, and who do I align myself with these beliefs. Okay, I don't believe all of that, right? But I right, the fine lines between belief and community and morality, and how there's still, like you said, there is still, even in the awareness of a expanded spiritual world, there's still shadows that people have to wrestle with, and what they tolerate, and um that's and how it enters. I don't know, this is kind of where I'm at. There is still an intersection of the reality of the created human condition of race,
Mm-hmm.
in this mix, that I'm because I have joined on didn't join officially. I don't think I've joined a church officially in a long time, but I wanted my children to have a spiritual community. I wanted to us to experience something, and I decided not to go back to the Methodist church, and so we've ended up at Unity.
Okay.
And my memory for Unity as a kid, I think my mom sang there. She sang at several congregations. And back in the day, from what I remember, right, it was off the beaten path, and it was just majority white folks. And I didn't want the kids, I needed them to have more of a diverse experience. Well, I went and I was like, it's a whole lot of black people there, right? So, 30 years, 30, 35 years can do something different, but there's a whole lot of black folks there. So all this is an interesting experience, but the community aspect, I guess part of my fear about this was um, me finding out a represented community,
Mm.
right? What does it look like for my existence to be in this, as it makes sense to me? And I know that's based on growing up in predominantly white congregations. That struggled with issues of race in the 70s and the 80s, and recently being integrated and all that represented. Um, so as I carry that around and heal through that, basically looking for a space of the people who believe in energy healers,
Mm-hmm.
um, and what that looks like for community.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and not being slave to colonial ideas and thoughts about those religions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically a community of diverse thought.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I mean, I certainly I have friends who are agnostic, I have friends who are atheists, and I use the term friends loosely, but um and people who are religious zealots and people who are and my my thing is not to it's not my job to try to change your mind on anything. That's not my job. I don't even want to sign up for that. Like have your
Right. We're not persuading.
I'm not. I'm
We're
not.
for
Um,
that.
but I think it's important that that you are exposed to different ideas and that you can have meaningful, deep conversations about the differences between those ideas, why they resonate with you, why they don't resonate with you, all of that, in order to open your brain up to how other people think about things and how other people, and I think that's one thing that people I think that's part of where we've kind of lost the thread. Like I just feel like in the early 1900s, sans slavery and Reconstruction and Jim Crow and all this other stuff, um, there was a more collective group of thinkers think the same. They respected everybody's difference of thought, but really wanted to investigate it, interrogate it, right? And now it just seems like people are dead set on what they think. They don't want to hear anything that you have to say about it. If you have a differing opinion on something, then why are you being so argumentative? Stop being so argumentative. Like it's so combative and confrontational now. And the idea of like exploring different thoughts just gets squashed nowadays, which is sad.
You talking about like on TV programming or?
I mean, across the board. Across the board. Like people have asked me before, like when they look at my collection of like my best friends, and people have been like, how are you friends with these people? Because they seem so different. And I'm like, yeah. Yes, that's what we want. And I've heard a lot of people, especially like people on podcasts and things like that, and people are just like, and I have always said, for me, I can't talk about nobody else, but for me, I am willing to sit across from the table from a Klansman and have the conversation.
Ooh, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely, right? As long as everybody can stay respectful and anybody calling nobody out their name and all that, right? Great. I'm more than happy to sit across the table from a person who has diametrically opposed views from me and have the conversation.
Have a conversation.
And have a conversation. But I have heard so much lately, and this is both from Black podcasters, Black political whatevers, all the things where people are just like, if you don't think like me, why would I want you to be my friend or whatever? And I'm like, wow, that's really where we at? We at where you need to think like me? And if I don't think like you, I should shut up and not express my opinion around you because of your fragility around me not believing like that. Like that to me it is sad, and it is going to have such a negative impact on humanity in the long term. And it will likely be, I don't think we'll be able to comprehend the impact it will have, but it will have long-standing impact and consequences.
Look, I blame it on the rise of the internet and I
Yeah.
think there's an agenda behind it. And when you said that, I immediately thought of Rwanda.
Mm,
Um, I think America, this might sound a little dark, but I think America's been at war for a long time
that's
with
true.
itself
And others.
and and others. And okay, I hate to quote Judge Joe Brown, but I feel like he was really made sense. He said that he had a Russian professor that talked about propaganda and how who was it? Forgot the philosopher, the Chinese philosopher, The Art of War,
Sun
that
Tzu.
guy.
Sun Tzu.
Yes. And he talked about how, by the time the war comes to your door, it's over.
Mhm.
Um, so he was talking about how the propaganda against America has been happening for a long time, and that because America's been so big and mighty, the strategy has always been to divide, right? To divide the nation.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, some of us have always been divided, but whatever.
Right.
Um, but he was like, it's kind of obvious when you look at the strategy, and that you could say from the 80s right? When it comes to white American dividing it in itself with the Reaganites and it's just sharpened with social media. So now you're only getting your what's on your algorithm. You're only seeing people that agree with you. And you don't even see of the other side. So um I mean, right, we're Gen X. So if I'm a young adult, born 2000 or 90s, and you only have internet brain,
I know.
right? And if you went to the average public school, which means your reading level's not that great and nobody teaches, well, I don't say nobody, but critical thinking is not high on the map, right? Unless you have a parent that forces you to do that. Then it's possible that that's all you do all day is just see that,
Self
right? You become
seeing
polarized. Yeah,
the bubble.
you only see point of view, and you never, because school is not designed for you to hear other points of views. It's designed for you to pick the main idea, right, of the text, and you have to be an advanced reader to be able to make an inference.
That's true. That's true.
Or on grade level to make an inference. And I do that, right, because teaching background, I do that to my kids all day long. Can you infer what I just, based on what I said, can you make an inference? Make an inference about, but we do that all day. So, huh, what? um, but if higher order thinking is not pushed on you,
True.
right? I just remember, and you remember too, you were part of beauty shops and barber shops where it was sport to have opposing viewpoints,
Yes.
right? That was just part of the culture.
Yes. And now,
yeah, and we don't, right? I don't know, because that's not my experience anymore. I don't see young people, because we just seem so fragmented now. I don't see them getting those opposing viewpoints unless you're offering it to them. Everything is about um memorization. And yeah, it's become more polarized. Like school is not having discussion, it's sitting down, memorizing facts and turning into AI, but AI is going to do it better in about 30 seconds.
right.
Um,
Right.
so
And
yeah.
so highly offended so easily. Like the moment you say something that doesn't sit with them, like everybody is offended. Like this like cancel culture kind of concept that,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm here for a good boycott. Like, don't get me wrong. Lord knows I certainly have. But like the things that historically for me that I've like taken a stand against are like from a corporate mindset where you're like, okay, I'm not doing business with this thing anymore, or I'm not, have been not things that people pinned on a page, but the actual actions that the company took. So you're boycotting whatever comedian or canceling whatever comedian who told a joke while Walmart you shop at every single day and they literally are doing harm to their workers on a daily basis by purposefully putting them on part-time, not giving them benefits, giving them the paperwork to go sign up for government programs so you get to pay for them twice, like the whole nine. You're okay with that and you will run over there for a $5 t-shirt, but let a stand up and say something and you're like, oh my God, cancel him, he shouldn't have a show, get him out the park. I'm like, oh my God, like he said, they said something. These people are doing things, like there are people actually doing things that violate all of your sensibilities or should, and you over here with the wrong concept. And so that's what's fascinating to me about people's level of offense. Like people are offended by what people say and not by what they do.
Oh, yeah. I can see that because it's reactionary and it's immediate. And if you wait long enough, in 15 seconds, they'll forget. So,
That is very true.
right. And it's because Walmart may not be on their algorithm, right? What people say may be on their algorithm. And I mean, unfortunately, I'm like, that's kind of the world we live in. I think a lot of people are just clicking and scrolling and they don't know the long-term effects. They're just now Gen X has a different responsibility. You know, Gen X and above, I feel like, yes, we have a different responsibility because we're pre-internet and we were in theory supposed to have gotten all these lessons. Um, but for those under us, because I think now there's more younger than us,
Mm-hmm.
than those large, then I can say they're not getting those lessons because it's not diverse enough where they are. It's not diverse in thought or it's not diverse in population. And if it is diverse in population, you see this Afro puff coming in.
I see it. I see the little, it's like, hey, hey.
You know, then then that is an extension of the work. But if you're like HISD, you have to follow the script or you'll lose your job, right? Nobody cares about what the students think, and they're not having conversations. And if they are having conversations, they are heavily scripted and controlled. And you have to answer in a certain way, and the teacher has to ask a question in a certain way. Um, so if that is our future, then it is literally the killing of the brain because the brain doesn't develop like that. It develops in creativity.
Right, right.
So so yeah, it's no, it's just not what it's not what people think. And I think most of us are so busy working and distracted or just trying to survive,
Mm-hmm.
or so dissatisfied we're going on to the next external thing that we are really missing it, that we're really missing it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're also looking for the whole, like you said earlier, validation piece, which brings us back to the big black tent because the more people you get into the tent, the more validated you feel, even if those people do not have your best interest at heart and are not whatever, you are just like, look, they sound like we can form a coalition. Great, let's do it. Let them in the tent.
Oh, that validation piece. So what I looked up, and I was, it's good awareness piece. But I looked up, and in my meditation, because I looked up the word confidence. I've
Mhm.
never looked at, 'cause I thought that's kind of basic. Why am I looking up the word confidence? But we've talked about shame in the past
Mhm.
and how that has prevented us from advocating for ourselves and helping each other. But confidence is the full belief in our abilities on our own,
Mhm.
right? Yes, validated with the community that but you're supposed to have it stock within you. So
Mhm.
if you've grown up with these systems or you inherited parents who didn't have it, right? They are because someone else said they are based on these conditions,
Mhm.
then you can say that we lack self-confidence. We don't have the confidence to not let anybody in the tent because we've only validated ourselves based on the existing culture,
Correct.
right? Who you say I am, who you say I am,
Not
right? So
to
go
be,
ahead. You said what?
not who I've decided to be on my own. Right.
Oh yeah, not who
Would
I've
say
decided to be on my own.
I can't be whatever I decide I want to be. I'm gonna be whatever you think is okay for me to be.
Because that locks in security, so-called security, right? Even though we know jobs can turn over. But again, I think in our experience, and maybe in a lot of people's experiences, you feel like your life is on the line. You know, you feel like your livelihood is on the line if you actually existed as you were called to exist. I know I have felt that way the majority of my life, right? To be exactly who I'm supposed to be. First, I have to find that out. I have to, retrieve that. Um, but second, not even really, you know what that goes to? That goes to what I believe you coined as the stench of freedom.
Mm.
What do I do even this week? What do I do with all this freedom? What do
Mhm.
I do with it when there is no one standing over me and I'm my own authority and autonomy,
Mhm.
right? When it's truly my responsibility to move this bus, mine. I can't blame anybody else. This is how I'm navigating my life. And if we have been on life support, right, which is intentional, right? If you've made me in a sense of our slave history, dependent on you for my so-called medical health, all those needs, and all of a sudden I'm extracted from the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
That's hella scary.
Be a jolt, definitely. It could definitely,
That that is a jolt if you're not used to hearing your own voice.
yeah. Especially if you think that someone else was keeping you there other than yourself,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
So if and again, don't get me wrong, please, people don't be like, oh Lord, she sound like Kanye. But I I
Say
get
it, say
again, this is all about the interrogation of people's ideas, right? Because I get what Kanye was trying to say. He said it poorly, but I get what he was trying to say when everything blew up on him when he went on TMZ and was like, we were slaves because we wanted to be slaves, right?
oh,
Like,
yeah, said that all wrong. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that.
everybody was
I was
like,
like, you could have said that
you
better.
did you see the boats with the and I'm like, I don't think that's what that dude was talking about. He was talking about in your own head, in your own mind. Because every day you wake up and you are doing the work of somebody else, regardless. Like you have someone that you have to keep happy. It doesn't matter whether you run your own business or you work for somebody else. Bottom line is you have people you answer to, whether it's your clients, you can't fire them all, otherwise you will have no money. Um, or it's your boss in corporate, whatever it is, or whereville. Um, but like to stay bound in that's
Mhm.
like mentally to stay bound in it. It's one thing to physically give yourself to something because of the condition that you're in. Like it's one thing to be in poverty physically, it is another thing to be in poverty mentally.
Mentally. And apparently, a whole lot of people are in poverty mentally
Oh yeah,
because not much moves,
right.
right? It takes like as I watch, right, the political campaign, I'm hearing these conversations like we're having the same. It's interesting to observe, but the same emotional reaction to the same theater every time. It's like, haven't we not? It's the same conversation since Tavis Smiley was doing the State of Black America. So I feel like Farrakhan is saying the same thing, and nobody's getting. So I say that because, like, wow, it's hard to move this needle. It's just difficult to move the needle because we have our habits, we have our belief systems.
Habits and beliefs.
Um,
Yep.
but I do understand what he's saying, and the lack of the amounts of shame, the lack of confidence in ourselves, and our belief systems, right, or what keep us tied in place. And I used to say to myself, who am I without my belief system, right? Who am I without my current belief system? Because how do I relate to my family members if I don't believe what they believe? If I don't, in that conversation, that took me decades to get that part, to feel the distancing between you and another because you've enmeshed yourself in ideals, right? Because maybe the fear is if I don't believe what you believe, then we will no longer be linked.
Correct.
Um, so that is scary for a lot of us who weren't raised to be independent, but instead you're cogged together in the same wheel, right? You exist in matter only if you agree with us. Um, my mom said something that was hilarious, hilarious. She said, let me tell you why I think Trump is a complete idiot. I was like, okay, why? She said, because he really believes people, for whatever reason, she was like, he really believes people stole the election. She said, but what he doesn't understand, if there's a whole lot of people who feel like they have to agree with the other people in their family. So they may show up to the rally, they may riot with you, they may talk a good game at Thanksgiving, but when they go in that booth, they do what they want to do.
That is correct. That is correct.
I was like, I never thought about. She was like, yeah, she was like in a crazy community like that, you're not gonna be the voice.
In essence, though, that is exactly what so in 2016, when Trump got elected, that is essentially what happened. White women who the liberals and the progressives thought were ride or die with them, but apparently felt like their mortgages needed to be paid and their children needed to be kept in private school.
Okay.
Right? They were like, go feminists, we burning bras and whatever, until I get to that booth and I'm gonna do exactly what my husband said to do. And I'm gonna go in here and pull this level for Donald J. Trump. And we will elect him to be the next president of the United States. And I will keep my mortgage and my suburban and my children in soccer practice. Okay. So, and that's exactly what happened. Like the when you look at the polls and the exit polls and all of that, that is literally what happened. The progressives lost the white female vote,
Oh
which
wow.
rarely ever happens, right? But again, they were like, "Dear Lord, let me go do what my husband asked me to do," and I'm gonna go in there, and he been talking about this all day, whatever. I'm going in there, right? So, Pete, like your mom said, people talk a good game, and then when they get in there to check the box privately, they be in there real private doing whatever they want to do.
Do whatever they want to do. So, we'll see. We'll see what moves that. We'll see what moves that needle. Ultimately, I really think, but I don't know, because I've been hearing people say a lot of stuff. Maybe get worse before it gets better. My hope and prayer. I don't want to suffer. I don't want anyone to suffer, but I do believe, hopefully, that we get towards the Bacon rebellion of the thing, right? When we understand that we're in this together, and there's just a very few people profiting from this, right? Right? That we're more alike than different, and we need to focus on what the real issue is, and that this distraction has been created. I'm praying that we just get that smart, right? We get that smart and that we do something about it. Um, but until then, unfortunately, those who don't know how to critically think, um, may end up in a civil war situation, may end up in some kind of crazy situation. Um, it's possible, but I'm hoping the Bacon Rebellion side, that people are waking up. You like, no, you're not saying Bacon. Okay.
I mean, literally, right? Like, think about it. I think it was Harriet Tubman who said it, that she could have freed more people if they had recognized, that they were slaves. Like, and you're talking about people who were living the condition.
That's true.
Like right now, we have a lot of people who recognize that things can go south, but they have their homes and cars and they have their job and their kids in private school and all the things, right? And so that is that in and of itself is not, it's a different type of slavery.
Well, yeah,
It's different type of slavery.
but they're comfortable. So
It's comfortable slavery, right? So you're like, oh, look, we can keep doing this for eternity because I got what I need. Most of my needs are met. We take 4 vacations a year, whatever, right? All that. So those people are, whatever. You even have people who are in abject poverty who are like, look, I get the refills on my WIC card. I know the system, I know the process, I've learned how to maneuver it. We good. We good.
so you have people, like we've talked about. You have people who are not uncomfortable enough to make a change.
That's correct. And I can tell you the very first thing, this is secret consulting change management for any change manager that's out there and is ready to do a readiness assessment. The very first question when I walk into clients and we're getting ready to assess the organization and determine whether we got strategic alignment with leadership and all this other mess, the very first question I ask is, are you dissatisfied with the current state?
Ooh.
Right? And the
Ooh.
follow-up question is, how dissatisfied are you on a scale? with the current state because change will not ever happen. I've never seen it in history. I've never seen it in a company. I've never seen it anywhere happen because people are thoroughly excited about where they are right now.
That is the truth. And that reminds me of the stats I saw that you sent over about HISD and how like 10,000, right? And I was like, I didn't even know y'all had that many. It was that many of us, but 10,000 employees. I'm like, then who's there? Um, are not there
Enough to
for
keep
every reason.
small, just enough to keep them small. That's what Mike say.
10,000.
10,000. 10,000.
I'm like, everybody should. I want to use the word fear, and I don't know where to put this. Maybe that's a question for next time. But conditions were so unbelievably horrible and criminal and abusive. I was like, how is this even legal? And I kept thinking about Dachau, Germany. I kept thinking about the concentration camps because when I visited, I saw how the camps were located next to what looked like, maybe not back then, but they looked like old store homes, suburbs, right, just over the fence. And you know how people, look, if it ain't me,
Right?
like you said, I got my pension, I'm in a public school, look,
I got my little,
right?
yep.
And that is exactly, I'm like, this is the most horrible criminal thing. And I'm like, I don't know what to necessarily do about it, but or if there is anything to do about it. But when I look at what has happened there, regardless of the history, not saying HSD was perfect by any means, but regardless of the history, um, I was like, this just feels like a testing ground for what's going to happen in a lot of different ISDs.
Oh, yes.
Um, I mean, when I tell you it's horrific, it is much worse than what they've ever said on the news. It's horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrific. And I was on a nice campus.
Right.
Um, so I can see how we just keep going, right? They're being bombed over there. I'm not.
Yep.
You know how people's brains rationalize that. And I've seen that on documentaries where Missouri City, something like Missouri City is being bombed, but Houston proper isn't. So
We
we're
saw,
just going to keep going
we
to work.
good. We not, we good.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
That's with everything. Like people and that, you know, and people have asked me about like people are always like, you come up with these extreme examples. Why do you have to come up with these extreme examples? Why is it always to be 100? And I'm like, because if you don't play it out to the end, you won't ever really be prepared, right? So yeah, people are okay again with um with whatever the new policy is that we all hate and no one likes and whatever. And it seems like, okay, well, that's for that group, right? They're like, oh, okay, you can't dress in drag in public. That's for that group. I don't have to worry because I don't dress in drag, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. Right? But what you don't understand is that the moment they tell them not to dress in drag, the next time they're gonna tell you not to wear a red shirt in public. And then they're gonna
right,
like
right.
every woman needs to wear a skirt, every man needs to wear a three-piece suit. Then it's gonna be you need a blue suit and you need it, right? And then it's gonna be like, and it just spiral, and then you get less and less, and now it's affecting everybody, and everybody's doing the same thing. And people, for whatever reason, it's the same thing. Like, it's fascinating to me. And I'm gonna bring this up, and I don't know where this is gonna go, but it's fascinating to me. Like, people look at the sexy reds of the world, and they're like, I don't even know how hip hop got here. I don't know what we doing, how we get here. All the old school heads, and I'm like, I saw that coming when we introduced Lil Kim, like that. Like when we did that, and everybody thought it was cute for to be on the red carpet with one little flower petal and Diana Ross jiggling her, whatever, whoever that was jiggling her little. I'm like, when these are the children of that. These are sons and daughters of that. I'm not sure where you thought we weren't going to elevate. Like, that's not how things usually work. There is usually things devolve, and usually pretty rapidly. I'm amazed we got so so that is where that started. And that's what I don't think people, right, wrong, or indifferent, with everything. I'm just saying what the argument is. And so people don't play things out to, okay, well, if we, like this whole thing about where we're gonna, like, everybody's talking about Project 2025 and JD Vance out here talking about how they think that if you have kids, you should get special incentives because you have kids, and people who don't have kids should pay more taxes and all this other stuff. Okay, great, let's do that. And then the
Okay,
next,
wait a minute. Maybe I like that part.
right? You're like,
Wait a minute, what they
oh,
saying?
run it back. Um,
Like what benefits me, right?
right, right. And so, okay, great, do that. And then the next thing will be, for everybody who buys a home gets this incentive. Everybody who does this gets that. And then before you know it, the very thing that you don't want to do, everybody who loses 20 pounds in a year, you may not even have 20 pounds to lose, but we don't care. Lose 20 pounds, get the incentive, right? So, like, that to me is the fundamental problem. People don't see it because it's just like the crack epidemic. No one was concerned because it was just Black communities. Who cares? Well, when crystal meth we hit little Timmy and little Elizabeth.
I like how Natalie and Rebecca, we're calling out these
I
the
know.
nerve of us.
I know. I was trying to find names more so than Rebecca and Natalie. I'm like, who else has a white name? But when they started doing crystal meth, and then they started popping pills, and now it's a problem. So now we need drug program. Now we need because your kid's strung out selling her body on the corner for $5. Okay, great, let's do that.
No, I do think and I don't know even what to make of this, but it's sort of like the essence of the thing. Sometimes I don't think it's the policy, because it is the policy. It's the policy and it's the essence of it. Like, if this is being done to oppress the people, well, guess what? What type of character oppresses people? How is that not going to affect you? Right? How is that? What is being oppressed in your community? And I think, hopefully, look at me, like, hopefully, we're getting to the point where we're not going to hurt. I love how Kim said this, that you don't, like, get to the point where we don't hurt people with our thoughts. We don't kill people with our thoughts. Like, can you have a different opinion? Can you have a different ideology and you not have to maim me in the process? Like, when do we move on past this? Or when do we not dismiss it? And how do we not continue to tolerate this at the level that we tolerate this? Like, what happened? Something happened recently. I can't remember what it was. And I thought, are we tolerating that? Do I need to say something about that? Like, it was something on the news. It was something blatant, but it was so blatant. And I don't think it had anything to do with us, but to me, it was just about human dignity and kindness. And I understand people will be people, but in my dream state, I kind of realize, as a special needs teacher, that everyone has the capacity to exhibit kindness and self-regulation. Like, that's a birthright, and that is a demand. Like, we're not negotiating there. It's a deal breaker. That's a deal breaker. Which brings me, do we have enough time to talk about Oh Boy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I saw a smidget of the tape, and the first thing I noticed, this will let me know there was way more going down, was there was a person just like nothing was going on.
What's going on?
She was getting whoever it was, beat. And this person was walking by like nothing.
Unbothered. Like it was a Sunday afternoon stroll and I'm eating my little ice cream, minding my business. Unbothered. If unbothered could be a person, that is it.
So that leads me to speculate on a couple of things.
Okay.
What were these dynamics? Who are these characters and why? When you see something like that, that means you've seen it so many times
Mm-hmm.
that it's just like an abused woman, that you're not reacting the way, right?
Right.
That you should. So I've only seen that 2 times in my experience where the person's like, I'm not let this happen, because yes, this is victim blaming, because maybe they need to learn their lesson and that's why they strolling by,
Right.
right? I'm not gonna get involved this time. Or because they are told to stay out of XYB
Yep.
business. Whatever it is, it's a toxic culture. Right?
Whatever it is, correct. Correct.
Whatever it is, it exhibits a toxic culture. Number one, there's no way you don't know the student's capacity, right? A student just doesn't pop off that violent. There are several signs and signals you see before that happens. It's never just 0 to 1,000.
So first of all,
Right.
you, my dear friend, are living in the world of should. You are living in the world of what people should know versus what people actually know. So while you may have been observant enough as an educator and a steward of our special needs children to identify and assess and to store the capacity of a young person's abilities in any set situation and what would escalate and trigger them, do know that that is a rare commodity because the average person is not paying that kind of attention.
And which brings me to that the fault, because I'm sure it was in the student's IEP, individual education plan. I'm pretty sure there was something on there about physical behavior, something about aggression. I'm sure that there were several things in that federal document and accommodations that said needed to happen to prevent this behavior. And obviously, if there was a person just strolling on by with no human reaction, there was something wrong and something was right. Something wasn't being done. Something, the way that student got up with no regard to what was going on, that big and that let me know there's no way. And I say that because I've had extremely violent students. Mm-hmm. But if you are not that level of observant, you will get hurt. You will get hurt. Special education, you have to have. You said what?
People are not that level of observant.
They don't need to be doing that job. It's literally like, to me, it's likened to I don't want to liken to it because I'm not trying to liken to criminal behavior. But if you are a warden, if you're a warden and you know these tendencies, and you know that there are tendencies for populations to pop off, well, then you carry yourself like anything can pop off. That's just the environment, and it's highly stressful. So the thing that made me very sad is that they imprisoned this young man. They imprisoned him, which another toxic behavior.
Yes.
So this was not the correct environment. The resources weren't there. The training wasn't there. The sense of urgency wasn't there. There was no crisis team. If somebody is just strolling by,
but like, it's a gajillion people. I mean, a gajillion people doing jobs that have the potential to be life or death or threaten other people's lives that are woefully undertrained. Woefully. I mean, we got police marching around shooting people because they twitchy.
It's twitchy.
You nervous.
Well, no,
nervous.
right.
Get off the job. Like, this is not, it's why I'm not a cop. I told my brother was a police officer for 10 years in Houston. And I remember telling him, I was like, this is why I'm not a cop. Is you see how you did not punch that dude after he made you run after him? I would have punched him because we not, first of all, I'm gonna shoot you because I'm not running after you. That's not what I'm here to, when I say stop police, God darn it, stop. We not running.
They're gonna be on the bad cop.
Right. But that is why I am not a police officer, because I don't have the patience.
That's
I
true.
I'm not doing it with you today. And when I'm not doing it with you today, lots of bodies gonna drop. And I'm gonna have a big so it's the same reason why I didn't go to the military. I ain't going to the military because I don't listen to authority like that. It ain't no reason for me to put myself in a position where you telling me where to wake up and how many laps to run and what latrine I got to clean. I'm not doing that. It's the reason why I didn't pledge a sorority, because what I'm not about to do is listen to you tell me you my sister while I got to also do crazy stuff for you. I'm not like, that's not me. So I'm not knocking anybody who does it. Know thyself. I said that earlier. I was like, one of the best things is know who you are. I'm not them. So same thing with these people.
Same
Woeful.
thing with people. No, that's not. But this is the issue. This goes back to accountability, which apparently isn't there. You don't get to, and this is my mouthpiece. Children are children. If you're under 18, I don't care if you kill both parents. Children are children. There was something that was going on in their environment that informed their half-developed brain to do something crazy. And too often, Black and brown and those that are disabled and disenfranchised get dismissed into prisons because we don't know what to do with people who are acting out, and we especially don't know what to do with children who act out. That's a societal issue, right? We don't know what to do with violence. We don't know what to do of why it is exhibiting itself in that way. And we just want to dismiss it and sweep it on the rug and punish it away. That's gotten us nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And unfortunately, because I don't know what the makeup of the population is, it's hard enough doing this in Black and brown spaces. But if you were in spaces where people don't have the sensitivity to the Black and brown, then it's a disaster every time. And I used to see that when I was in Klein ISD, and especially when Trump and racists got really emboldened, to see these babies criminalized.
Yeah.
Criminalized, writing up assaults for fifth graders, right? Using that word assaulted. So us being more vigilant about where we place our babies, if you can, right, get the resources and homeschool your babies. If you can't, having to be vigilant at these spaces and know the law, right? Being ever present and fighting and finding advocates. But to me, it's just so unfortunate because the only one in prison is that child. Mm-hmm. The only one is in prison is that child, and that child who has a disability was supposed to have caretakers.
Right.
So it's unfortunate. I'm like, they're like, and if people are like, well, don't you feel some kind of way about the teacher? I would if it informed an unfortunate accident, because I was injured myself, and I knew some teachers that were injured as well. And when you have the heart to do that work, you understand that the babies that you have are not operating with the same brain that you are.
Right.
Right. And so you take your, for lack of better words, you take your losses. Right?
It's like dealing with patients that might have Alzheimer's or dementia and are in later stages, right? They are yelling and angry and might be violent, but that's not them. That's something altogether
Right.
different. Yeah.
Right. You take it and you get the training. You're supposed to practice your training based on these realities. So I don't think it was interesting. It was just what I saw in the teachers, whoever that was, I saw fear. I didn't see protective stances. I didn't see any of that training that we're taught of how to deal with the student. If I read something about or heard something about taking away a controller or a computer thing, a toy, right, from a baby on the spectrum. So that's already a high incident. You got to take them away.
Do that. Like you
got to assemble a team.
PlayStation is keeping your attention, boo. Call me when you lose attention, okay? Because we're not going to go there and take that away from you.
You can't, like, there has to be a plan in place to take things away, which includes a very detailed plan. You can't just snatch something. Like, that's your fault. And I'm gonna be bold about that. That's your fault. You weren't trained, nobody told you. but you can't just snatch something away. That boy looked like he might have been heavier and bigger than me.
Yeah.
Right. Which is
Yeah.
another reason I'm not in high school doing sped work. But
right.
You know, the elementary ones, you can barely get away with that. But at that age, there's a reason. But it goes back to training. It goes back to training, and it goes back to the respect of your job. And there were certain things that administrators don't understand. Like I just remember my students doing, especially my 40s, doing it, that I wasn't going to put myself at risk certain ways anymore. And so if a student came in and I knew their capacity, oh, he's on 10 and he walked in on 10. Oh, I'm not bothering him today. We'll try again tomorrow.
That's the equivalent to me. That's the equivalent of people who work in retail and chase after people who stole stuff. If you don't let Target fill out that insurance paperwork and take that as loss, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not running after again. Things Natalie is not doing. Not running. Not running.
Yeah.
If you come in on 10, but you know what I've realized? A lot of people don't know how to read the room either.
Correct. They don't, or there's so much power and control, power struggles. You won't do what I say. You just
that too. It to me is no different than if you have a friend or a spouse or a partner or whomever, and they come back and they a little upset, out of character, out of personality. This might not be the time to remind them all the things they have not done that you have asked them to do over the last 2 weeks. Like this, pick appropriate time.
That comes with see, this is what I realized. That comes with maturity. That comes with healing. That comes with skill set, because I had parents who never got that lesson. But that comes with maturity. It comes with healing. It comes with we can't even call it common sense. So if that is not a skill set, then that is a problem. And what I do remember, which is being comfortable in your heart and having the confidence, because I'd been in so many rooms with fools and I didn't say anything in the past, and I watched kids. I felt so powerless at the time in my own life, but I watched children be abused who shouldn't have been abused, right? By people who were, quote unquote, had authority over me to hire and fire me, and tried to several times. Mm-hmm. But by the time I got to my late 30s, early 40s, I was like, you know what? I have something called integrity. Do what you want with me, but I'm not going to watch a child be mistreated. Right. And a lot of teachers don't know, or there were certain people who couldn't in my room. Yeah. There were certain people I would not allow in my room because they lacked the ability to care. They just didn't care. Right. So I think that's probably the saddest thing, right? About and this guy made a joke about it, right? But it was so true. He said, I'm sure you've heard there's a teacher shortage. He said, so we need you here. And he said, you could slap a kid 3 times, and look, we just gonna tell the parents that you got Tourette's, you had a bad day. It's gonna be a better day tomorrow. Like, we just and I'm like, he ain't lying. So when it comes to especially special ed, the profession is severely undervalued, unappreciated. You don't get paid enough, and you're demonized while you're doing it, and you're in constant threat of getting your license taken away from you because of those volatile situations. Right. And because you're human, and because you're human, there are days when I said, yeah, I just need to go to my car. I just need to go to my car for 20 minutes to get myself together, or I might not ever come back. Right. Right. So giving yourself breaks, giving yourself what you need. Or there were days when I said, you know what? You come to my room today, ain't nothing going on. Right. Like, there will be nothing today. We're just going to do maker space. We all need a break in here. Yes. But having the confidence and the maturity to be human while you do your job. Right. Right. Because it is a hard thankless job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I cannot really imagine, but I can imagine that it I mean, you're dealing with about, for whatever the reason, humans who are not are unpredictable. Um, and that's why I was like, there is no amount of training. I just want to be clear to you. There's zero amount of training, Rebecca, that somebody could give me that would tell me to go in. The thing that has created a quiet space for an individual who is minding their own business with their little Nintendo, whatever, or whatever is holding their attention, there is absolutely no training that anybody is going to tell me that is going to make me go over to that human and be like, okay, now these are the 10 steps I'm supposed to do. So if I do this and then I talk to you and I say hello and then I find out and then I get you to volunteer, but you don't want to volunteer. So then I do plan B. And then, I'm not doing that. I'm not about to disrupt that person's peace, because if they peace get disrupted, all things get disrupted. So no, they can have it's fine. We will learn how to fold our clothes tomorrow. That's what we will do. We will do that tomorrow or maybe next week. I mean, it's no rush. We got time. We got 9 months in here till summer. We gonna figure out a day to get it in there.
Get this done. I think that is a testament to the training. Technology is a very easy trigger for a lot of babies, even neurotypical babies. Even my kids, technology is very addictive. So yeah, it's a very detailed training that has to go into that, because that whatever that is, that serotonin level drops an instant, boom.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, yeah, that has to be done with care. So it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but I'm really confused at the lack of response to the passerby, which indicates a toxic environment. I mean, you watching somebody just get beat up and broken like that. I'm like, there's other problems, obviously, in that environment.
Missed the whole Did you miss the whole story in Uvalde where the police who's supposed to run in and stop gunmen did nothing?
Yeah.
So again, I'm like, no. So I again, unsurprised. I'm not surprised at all.
That
Um,
people like, it's not my response. It's not, and I think that's my thing, the lack of care, the lack of humanity, the putting off of responsibility. It's not my kids. And I also saw in that same story that one, there was a mom who literally ran in, got her own kid, and well, no, before she did, they arrested her to a tree or something like that, told her she couldn't go in. Uncuffed her. Somebody told me to uncuff her. She runs in and she gets her child and comes out. And she said the police are just standing there because no one told them
go in.
to go in, which is unfortunately very common. Well, nobody told me. See it at every job. They didn't tell me. They didn't tell me.
Policy say we gotta wait to be greenlit. Okay, well.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm gonna do the least. I'm gonna do the very, very minimal to get this check. Apathy.
Yeah.
Apathy. I'm gonna try to do is nothing, as much as nothing as possible to not get fired. But when
And
it comes to children, that's an issue.
and to your point earlier, just lack of critical thinking. Like, don't get me wrong, people. I fully understand that there is policy and there is procedure. I mean, like, companies have built binders and binders and binders of policy and procedure. So clearly there are such things. And policy and procedure you should try to adhere to those things, but at some point in time, right? So again, back to myself. Whatever the policy and procedure is, and there's an oil and gas client that you can talk to tomorrow and they will attest to this. I don't need anybody's permission to save my own life. So I get that there's policy and procedure that we all supposed to go to a muster point, and you're supposed to muster and wait for the floor say fire warden to like give you the door. I don't. I
Somebody
know.
was gonna jump out that window. I rope down.
Literally, I was at a plant in Pasadena. I heard a boom, and then I heard the little things come on. And I was in a meeting room with the entire senior and executive leadership team for the plant. And when the little alarm thing went off, I was like, they were like, well, let's wait and see. They were like, let's wait and see what they tell us, because this could be a practice thing or whatever. And I was like, and I'm packing up my stuff. I didn't close my laptop. I was presenting. I closed my laptop, I'm packing up stuff. I'm doing it calmly, but I'm packing up stuff. And I was like, if it were a practice, they would have told you that 11:02 the alarms are going to sound and it's going to be a practice. That email did not go out. And they were like, "Are you leaving?" I was like, "Yes, I'm leaving." And they were like, "Well, you need to wait for." I was like, "No, I'm not waiting. I'm leaving." I am leaving, and you know where I will be. I will talk to y'all tomorrow on this conference call. Like I don't need it. So like people, I get policy and procedure, understand it fully, but there is a point in time where you have to critically think about what is the right thing to do in this situation, because just because something is policy and procedure doesn't mean it is the right thing to do, and policies and procedures don't cover the exceptions. Policies and procedures are for the normal flow of things, the things that happen pretty regularly. Therefore, we can create a procedure around it because it happens pretty regularly. When there are things that don't happen pretty regularly, you gotta put your thinking cap on and do what you need.
That's a big one, because we're in Houston, and we see people's reactions to storms and events, and our recent things. But even if you're from the hood and you remember the shootings, or people act very different in emergency situations,
Yes.
very different. And some assume responsibility for themselves, and others, some assume none. Right, for themselves and anybody else.
Me. I I assume no responsibility for nobody else but myself. Everybody around me, no, put your own mask on first before you try to help somebody else. So yeah, I mean, like, critical thinking. So, you need to do what you need to do in situations, apply critical thinking to the situation. Um Because the other thing, when I saw the person walk by in the back, and it's interesting to hear your perspective. When I saw the person walk by in the back, I was just like, they don't want to catch a beat down. So
But that's okay. That makes perfect sense
what I
outside
thought.
of public education. But see, public education, you assume, right? You assume responsibility because you're adjacent, because there's a child involved. So I don't know. I think it was high school, right? There's something tells me, like, when it comes to a child, when it comes to public education, if for nothing else, you're either taking data, you're either running briskly to get some assistance, right? You're checking on to see if the person is there. You're being a witness and standing back, right, when the person clips. There's some form of action that you take,
I
not
think
just disregard, nonchalant.
first of all, I wouldn't have walked by. Let's be clear. I would have ran by, because I would be like, I don't want them to see me. They don't want to see me. I don't want to see them.
That's understandable if you're a visitor or if you don't belong to the school. Something tells me that person was another, not administrator, but belonged to the school, meaning they were
But does that mean
reporting
they're
data.
supposed to step in? Because I don't think that's just a school thing. Let me tell you. I think people who are in service of others, like
Right.
that's their thing. They are in service to others, do that kind of stuff. Because I'll never forget, we were going to somebody's birthday party when I was little. We went to the Kroger's. I was like 10. My brother was in the car. I might have been a little younger than 10, because my brother, I don't think he was in high school. So I might have been a little younger than 10. But we went to the Kroger's. There was literally, Rebecca, literally a gang fight happening in front of the Kroger. My mama had stopped because she needed to get nail polish before we went to this party. And somebody, like, there are two sets of boys, like 10 on each side, in front of the doors of this Kroger grocery store. One of them has like a pipe and like an iron, like the iron chain things or whatever. My mama still get out the car and walk up to them boys, and she is like, I'm going in this store. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call your parents. I don't even know who your parents are, but I'm calling them. I'm like, first of all, my mama is barely 5 foot. I mean, I get my height from my daddy. Thank God he was 6'1". My mama is barely 5 feet. And she was like reading these people left and right. And I'm like, when she got back in the car, I even told her, I was like, what is wrong with you? You cannot go. And like, and literally they broke up the fight. Like that broke up the fight. My mama walking between the groups of boys, telling them she was going in the store, she was calling the police, and then she was gonna call their parents. Now she don't know their parents, but she just threw that out there. And I was like, what is wrong with you?
See, because she was like, I'm disappointed. You got a civil rights mama. We didn't march that hard.
Professor, that's why.
Okay.
Y'all just be inserting yourselves and stuff. Trying
but
to
see,
this
happened at a school, inside of a school. She was a teaching assistant or a teacher. So if it was at Kroger, if it was
she could have been a lunch lady. We don't know who that woman was. She could have been a lunch lady.
Well, the issue is that I don't know who the administrators are, but there is school protocol. There is school protocol.
So if you
I didn't
by, would you have gotten yourself involved in that?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Really?
Yes.
You wouldn't have kept walking with help. You would have like beelined to the beatdown.
Yeah.
And what would
see, I'm trained. I know what to do.
Was sizable.
Huh?
Dude was sizable. So when you
that was my profession. So when you have a crisis plan in place, and I'm assuming they do, but maybe they don't. Okay, crisis plan. There are supposed to be at least 4 to 5 people on the. There's supposed to be 4 to 5 people on the crisis plan. You have one person taking data. You have another person who is supposed to direct and try to calm the student down, right? There's supposed to be another person who's supposed to help you restrain the person, or another person trying to get the victim, right? You're trying to get in touch with the victim. So if anything, you would attempt to de-escalate since he was going, you stay close to her, right? Or you start blocking him. Like there's a way that you can de-escalate and block, no matter what the size of the student is, because he's angry about something, which sound like she either had an object or she said something, but he looked like the kind of kid who she took something away, right? And he wanted it back.
Okay.
So, and then once he got it back, maybe he was mad and out of control by then. So a lot of times, if this child is that sensory related, they need a YouTube video, they need a song, they need you to stun them, they need you to throw a chair, not at them, but you throw a chair in their direction, you disrupt the pattern, right? But there's just so many strategies and techniques. You don't just allow him to continue, because he could have killed her. I don't know. He did a good job whooping up on her, but a lot of times they just need to be distracted from what they're doing, or they need complete opposite. They need somebody to whisper to them, right? So I'm just, because it seemed to go on a very long time, even in that snippet, with no other adults around.
Right.
Well, we saw the one adult, but if you don't know what to do, you don't know what to do, because you can make it worse, right? So you could make it worse, and you
don't know what you're doing. Stay
right.
You know what you're doing. Yeah. That's advice, because ain't no reason for all of us to die here. Somebody's got to live.
It's just, I don't know. It was just the face that got me. Like, there's like no expression or no sense of urgency. It was just kind of crazy to me, which means this happens often.
Oh, I'm certain it happens often. But I would think like even with your classes and stuff like that, I would imagine there was probably pretty frequent disruption. Maybe not violent outbursts, but I would imagine there was always someone who was unwilling to do something that required much more attention than anybody else. Like that's just kind of the state of being in that space.
Yeah, it was. But well, I guess, and this is my training. If it was above the norm, everyone was gonna know it. Like this is unacceptable. Like there were levels of acceptance of that behavior, and everyone was going to be involved in that. So
Right.
I was used to pulling my team to say, "This is too much.
Okay.
This is why I need your help. This is too much. This is beyond my pay grade. We need to do something about this. You know, you're going to know that this happened yesterday. If a student is that violent, then they need to know that I have a plan and a training in place. There's like several thousand steps when you have a student that violent.
Okay.
You don't know if he was medicated that day, if he was supposed to be medicated, was he going to his appointments, who's his mama, who's his daddy, like was the TA who was trained not there that day, was that TA thrown in the class and didn't know the triggers. um it could have been so many different, it could have been so many different things, but whatever it was, yeah, if you don't know that kid, you leave them on the computer all the damn day, like you don't bother that kid.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just leave him be,
Yeah.
because
Agreed.
nothing is worth getting beat up, nothing is worth getting injured over unless you are willing to take those risks with the team that you have in order to meet a goal, right? Because sometimes in my past, I knew, okay, she is going to explode. She is going to charge for one of us, but we have to teach this lesson. She's got to learn this, and we're going to be ready for it. But I would tell my partner, okay, I'm going to push past her capacity, but she's got to learn this. Let's get prepared. You go over there, you go over there, and then you get ready to restrain. But we would know it was coming, you know. But we got to do this. You can't live your life like this. You have got to meet this goal. So especially with students who think, okay, unfortunately, you can negatively reinforce behaviors
Yes, I'm sure.
that nobody ever challenges you because you just gonna go buck. Well, I was that teacher that, okay, you're gonna go buck with me because you're not leaving my class with these behaviors on my watch. So, but unfortunately, in a lot of schools, you know, because everybody's class is different, they're gonna give the kid whatever they want to appease them.
Right.
Well, then it never gets fixed. You
Yeah.
never fix that behavior.
Right.
So that's exactly what that looked like. Everybody just kept appeasing that kid, and the one time he wasn't, well, then he lost the shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
He lost the shit. But no, you have to push these kids past. I have to do that with my own children, push them past their capacities, based on the trauma that they've received. But I've reaped the rewards of it. Especially my second born, he had the social skills, go down there, communicate, make that money, you know. But I also have holes in my walls from a couple years ago that need to be repaired. But
Yeah.
we had to get to that point. You just can't buck adults and think that that's okay.
Yeah.
So if they're gonna learn the lesson, it's supposed to be in a safe space, not allowing a kid. Because to me, that's a neglect is a different form of abuse. We
Yeah.
enable you, but you never learn a lesson. And then by the time you big and black and violent, people want to shoot you and imprison you.
That's true. I guess I just don't see school as a safe space. So that's the first thing. Because I would think that like you would teach those lessons at home, as a parent, under whatever supervision. But I just don't, in my head, there are very few lessons and behaviors that public school should be instilling in any of my children. And I don't even have children. But in my fake children in another universe, public school should not. There are no
I mean,
that I need you to put into my children at all. So yeah, so that's probably why I'm having the reaction I'm having, because I'm just like, that's such the wrong, that's such the like I don't even think public school is where special ed children should be. Like it's there, to your point, there's all kind of behavioral needs that are there. And most people are not trained appropriately. It's almost like saying, let me take this, and this is an extreme comparison, but let me take this schizophrenic, bipolar, whatever, and I'm gonna give them to a therapist. No, that's not therapy. That's psychiatry, and that's a whole the whole different class of thing right there. A whole different set of ailments and issues, medication that's required. Like it's a whole different thing. And so to me, I feel like it's not setting people up for success. It's not setting educators up for success. It's not setting the kids up for success. It's not setting nobody up for success.
Well, I do agree with you there. The only campus that used to do that right that I thought, well, and people could debate that, but Klein had a therapeutic center.
Okay.
So, but they also had kind of severe behaviors other places, but they had a therapeutic center um for special needs students. Like if they were too violent to be in the general education classroom, they would, it was kind of almost like their DAE, kind of like their alternative school
Okay.
um for a small class size. But no, surprisingly, they have made that the work of public schools. They have made, and a lot of times my rooms have looked like psychiatric centers and hospitals.
Correct.
Um, but you're not getting that pay and you don't have that uniform
Correct.
and you really don't have that training. I just had it by experience.
That is correct.
Um, so yes, I do think that that is a real big disservice. Because yeah, I think that is a real big disservice, and I don't think they're getting their needs met, especially at HISD.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I don't know how that goes. It's a federal law, but it's just not resourced and trained. And in a position like special education, I'm not sure how that goes because we end up doing psychiatry and nursing and in all of the jobs, and then you're supposed to also teach. So I don't know how they've made that the job of the teacher, um, because you literally feeding tubes, whatever, right?
Yeah, that's I don't I like it
Potty
makes
training,
sense to me. No, I
yeah,
mean it's difficult enough to teach kids who are not special needs. Like
right,
and so yeah, no. Mm-mm.
yeah.
I disagree.
It would be great. I think it could work if the resources were actually there. Um,
If the resources were there, but I mean, again, you're talking about like having people who are psychiatrists and PhD therapists, and like it's a whole thing, not someone who graduated 4 years in school with a degree in PE. Because I remember one of the teachers in Quell Valley was like a PE teacher and a special ed teacher. I'm like, you have a history degree. What are you doing?
and ironically, the interesting part about that is so messed up is the psychiatrist and they don't have, and this is the interesting part that I had to realize, clinical physicians, unless, well, no, they're working with a different model because they can sedate. If you get crazy, they just
Yeah,
sedate you,
yeah.
right? But in the public school model, they don't, they are not with students 8 hours a day.
But see,
So technically,
that's what I'm saying. I think they should be.
I think they should be, but it is not the model. So their models of care are not based on that I discovered reality.
Right.
Like you with these students maybe an hour, 2 hours max. In the hospitals, I don't know what those teachers look like in the hospitals, but I don't think they're receiving 8 hours
They're not.
of
Even in
teaching.
the hospitals, even in because my mom did used to do work at the DePelchin Children's Center.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And the doctors, they make their rounds and that's it. They're not there like, yeah, that's it. Like in the same way in the hospital, right? Like you may be needing regular medical attention in a hospital, but the doctor ain't the one there doing it 20. Like he come in, make his round, he see you for 5 minutes and then he writes some orders and then he gone.
right,
So yeah.
right. I really don't know where that, I think in the 80s it was. I think in the 80s it was in the hospital. Um, and they moved everything to the public school. I don't know if the public school won that grant, that money. I don't know what priorities shifted. Um, but I do know it's housed in public education system, and private education picks it up too, and it depends on the severity of the child, right? I'm talking about the more the severe, no profound behaviors.
Right.
um but I don't know how that looks because the models are so different, but I think the community needs to come together on that because there does need to be some education.
Yes.
The only way I've done it, I've seen it, and I think they went out of business because of funding. There was a place in the Heights that was, their model was so magnificent. The principal was a psychiatrist,
Okay.
and there was a teacher and a psychiatrist assigned to each classroom.
Okay.
And I think it was like maximum like 4 students for a class.
Okay.
And so the teacher would teach, and if the student had an episode, the psychiatrist would do her thing.
Okay.
Right. And if it was severe, they would go upstairs to the principal, who was the top psychiatrist, and she'd write them a script for a facility.
Okay.
Right. But that was private funding, and it was in between two houses in the Heights. That's
Yeah.
probably the most magnificent model I'd ever seen.
Okay. 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 Yeah. Man.
Yeah. And they were flexible in their learning, right? So they moved with their capacity. It was perfect because it wasn't standardized based, right? It's based on the needs and the interest of the students. Um, so yeah, in a perfect world, but I
Yeah.
think the scholarship was like the tuition was like 75,000 a school year.
Good Lord. That's very specific.
Yes, I remember that. She was like, "Well, they get scholarships." I was like, "Wow, $75,000 a
Very
child."
specific group of people right there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
I was
And
like, "That's the perfect model," but not everybody can afford that.
not everybody, most 90% of the population can't afford that.
I'm like, "Why can't the state provide that? They're getting the money. They're getting the money.
Oh,
So maybe that's what policy and advocacy is about.
Rebecca,
But they have the money.
look at you thinking that because the state has
They
money.
got it. I've seen them chicken dinner.
No,
Oh,
but
look at me, just because they can't do the right thing.
just because you think they got the money, they gonna do the right thing. That's so cute. It's cute. I love it.
I mean, because I used to think literally that, yeah, I was really naive, but I used to really think that it was a budgetary issue. But in this United States, we have whatever it is we want to allocate for.
Whatever we want to allocate for, that
Right?
is, it
We
is
have,
rarely ever a budget problem.
right?
Rarely ever. And when you talk about the ISDs and stuff like that, because they just voted to put, I think that was for the city of Houston, but they just voted to put a $4 billion bond on the ballot for November. So if they don't have it, if they like, no, I don't really feel like moving money from my slush fund to over here, we'll just do a bond issue. We'll make it a bond issue, and then we'll get the money that way. And it still won't go to where it's supposed to go.
Not
Great.
gonna go. And even if it does, like you were paying special ed teachers $92,000 a year, 40% of your population quit. The money wasn't enough because the abuse was so great. So it's like, unless you're gonna do the right thing by people and give them the support that they need and the community support, the money isn't the issue. The money technically isn't the issue. It's the people.
Yeah. It is always the people. Once more and again, what is my book title? Hey, you leader. Yes, you're the problem. That's my book title.
It's leadership and the people we allow
To be in those positions.
be in those positions. So what is when we find ourselves, right? Because we're responsible for ourselves, we're responsible for our self-regulation, our self-confidence. When we find ourselves in spaces and places that are not for our highest good, what is the next step?
Leave. Leave. If it's not, again, I don't know how many people I have coached who come to me looking for like career advice and how to get to the next level and to help them work a plan to do that and all that. And when they tell me the stories about how they were in the bathroom crying after a meeting, and I'm like, do you know if my eyes even get glassy due to frustration levels? I am out, like, I'm not participating. I'm not participating with y'all in this mess. No. And I can tell you, I had a client who I fired, a very large client. And when I got into the organization, and this says a lot because my bread and butter is oil and gas and energy. This client, it was not, they were in like facilities management and all that stuff. And when I got into that client, I was probably there for a month. And after the second or third week, other people on the team, my team had gone out to like different sites and stuff like that. And they were like reporting back on like user sentiment and things like that as we were preparing to like do this project work or whatever. And two different times, which were the two only times at two different sites, they came back and they said to me that, they were telling, they were presenting their information and their findings and all this other stuff. And they said that the frontline team members regularly deal with homelessness and food insecurity. And I was like, huh?
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, so, I went and talked to Lee and I was like, this is I'm not sure if if I'm understanding this correctly. So I want to make sure that we're collecting the right information and we didn't talk to people who are not really, representative of the company and whatever. And I was like, are there frontline team members out there who are like homeless and don't know where their next meal coming from? And they were like, it's an unfortunate part of the jobs that we have and da 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 da. And I was like, you, you, you're a $3 billion publicly traded company. What are we talking about here? It's unfortunate.
Right.
I was like, by week 4, and I told this tomorrow, like my soul hurt,
Oh,
hurt. And I told Martin, I was like, I don't think I can keep this going. I was like, this violates every ounce of sensibility that I have in me. And he was like, well, do what you need to do, whatever. And by week 4, child, I told leadership, I was like, look, let me tell you, this is not going to work. I can't be here. It seems like y'all are unconcerned. And not only are you unconcerned, it seems like it's not even a priority
yeah.
for you to figure out how to forget even paying a fair wage. I'm not even taking that battle on. How to address your employees who you call team members and say that you care about. You have not figured out how to address the fact that a vast majority of them who work on front lines do not have stable homes or food. You've not figured that out. You are not interested in figuring it out. You have no programs in place to support them to figure it out. And you are a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company. I have got to go. And you are abysmal and you all should be ashamed of yourself. Which is why, I mean, that was a conversation with everybody. So I left and fired him, right? So, I mean, again, you have to come to terms when things are not serving your higher person when they don't seem to set well with you. And don't get me wrong, again, there's plenty wrong with corporate America. There's plenty wrong with clients, even if you're in business for yourself, that you're gonna struggle with. But you have to figure out what that boundary is for you. Because again, I get my bread and butter from oil and gas and energy. And people can say that, environmentally they have issues and whatever, but they at least fake it. Like they be like, we're gonna give $1 billion away to Greenpeace so they can fix the well thing because we don't. And that's your boundary. But you got to figure out what your boundary is, and you have to be honest about it. And then when confronted with someone who's with something that either steps on that boundary or steps completely over that boundary, you've got to know what you're willing when you set that boundary. What were you willing to do when someone violated? Because the whole point of a boundary is understanding that it is one and there are consequences for the violation of that boundary. We don't just set boundaries to set them. Like, you have to think through what are the consequences? What are my actions that I need to take when someone violates the boundary? Work.
I like that. I like that. I'm gonna even take that in that way you put it, even for my children. But yes, what does that mean? How do we implement a consequence for that, so we don't feel disempowered and as victims? Yeah. And trusting. I got that Huffy bike. I have that Huffy bike story in my mind, and trusting that, right?
Trusting.
Like, the God will supply. I need that Huffy bike thing.
Trusting that God will provide. Now, obviously, if you're gonna get evicted on your next non-made payment for rent,
Right.
this also goes towards planning, right? So people find themselves in positions that are untenable to them. And again, you join an organization or you decide to step out and do something, whatever, and you didn't realize that, right? But playing things out to the end, right? What happens if this doesn't work? What are my moves? And I think, they talk about people who play chess and how, and I don't play chess, so I don't know, because I just got annoyed with the rules. I was like, so I can't move this up and down. If I could just move it up and down, I don't want to move it left and right. So but they talk about people who play chess and their ability to think multiple steps ahead. And I feel like most of us are not planning for what we will do should the should worst case scenario present itself. And I'm not just saying, oh, you need to save 6 times your whatever. I'm not just talking about that. I just mean, like, even what are the avenues for support? What are the avenues for even at work, like, you may be able to take leave.
Right.
You may be able to say, look, y'all have put a mental strain on me. I need to take leave for mental strain. And there may be a leave policy where there's pay involved in you taking mental leave. And while you're out on mental leave, you just happen to come up on another job, right? Like, whatever the case may be, like, what are the various things, all the possibilities that exist? What are those things? Have you identified them, and do you know how to use them? So should the worst case scenario present itself and you find yourself every day at lunch in the last stall crying, as someone told me, I'm like, that's ridiculous. What can you do to make your situation better? Even if it's give yourself a timeline, even if you have to stay there and there's no whatever, and you're like, okay, I got to stay here. This is horrible, but for how long? And what are we doing to get ourselves out of that situation?
That's true. That is the truth. That is true. So we have options, we have opportunities, we have choices, and critical thinking and planning should be a regular part of our diet.
It should be. It should be. And that's using the word should.
Should be. Do you give, I do remember way back when I was breastfeeding Grace that you would give classes, or what? Do you still give classes and workshops?
I do not. I don't know why I don't. I mean, people just kind of seek me out. I've thought about doing them again, like having sessions and classes. I just, I don't know. It didn't feel like there was an appetite for it. Like, I think people, again, back to this, I'm not a frills kind of person, right? So, like, I'm not creating no box for you to bring your vision board and then we're gonna put it in the box and we're not doing that. Like, we are here for results. Vision boards are cute. That's great. Fantastic. Now, what we doing? What we doing to get the vision to manifest? Because it's not putting it in a box and dancing with your girls and then go and have a drink and then coming back the next day and then we're gonna talk about it and we're gonna journal and like that's not the thing. Like, there has to be specific action tied to the things that you want to get. So again, I'm not that person who is trying to make every moment of your workshop Instagrammable. I don't care. That it's not my life. Like, it's not my life. My life is not the one. I'm fine. My balances look great. My stock portfolio is well diversified. I'm fine. You the one that need. You the one trying to get out of whatever situation or manifest whatever your vision board said on it from 4 years ago that still ain't manifested yet. You try that, you're like, that's your thing. So, I'm kind of a no frills person. So when I was having the workshops, as you know, like, we're going to address this in a methodical way, and we're going to put actions down, and we're going to put the things that we need to do that are tactical, that are measurable, that you can say, okay, here's my 30, 60, 90 day. Here's my 1 year. Here, like, all we're going to look at all of that. And it's going to be very specific. And I'm going to challenge you on the whackness that you probably wrote down. So, and there's not a real appetite for that because people like to be pacified. People like for messaging to be all packaged, all pretty, and we need Instagram moments, and we need we need the little flower wall.
We out here playing is what you're saying. We out here playing. We out here playing, and we ain't serious. So I'll put this out. I'll put this out in the universe because I've been all of those people. Um, I've been all those people. Is the Trump era is upon us again. I don't know. I know. And let me just make this personal to me. Now that I know what will I'm supposed to be, right? And I don't know, maybe this is our community thing. I don't know what it is because you have to get down to the essence of who you are in order to do these things. And if you have a sense of who you are, well, then it seems to be easier, right? But if you got a bunch of mismatched socks, I love my analogies, right? Then you're doing all this sifting to find, because people say your why, not your why, the what. What are you? Who are you, right?
Oh, you get to the why, can you get to the what? What? Yes.
To the what. So I like the fact that because I think I went to two, and I remember the first time I was like, wow, this is really impressive, but I have no idea, right? I have no idea. Like in the second time, I was breastfeeding her, I was like, I have an idea. I had moved from that having an idea, and then life happened. So I think those stages, those seeds are very, very important. I do think that they're very important. I don't know if you're familiar with Eric Thomas. Yeah, the hip hop preacher.
A hip hop preacher.
Okay. So Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, is big on. Hold on, I gotta put this girl down. She is heavy. Hold on. Okay, I'm here. Oh, child, I think she's 50 pounds now. So Eric the hip hop preacher, um, is it started. Thank God it's Mondays, right? He started as a YouTube sensation, and he's an inspirational speaker. And then he's also a coach. And then he also has these goals and communities, like these very detailed goals. Um, and his approach. And I know about him because my sisters were on his calls and things like that. And he does the, what is that? The disc plan. You would know it if I spelled it out, but it's one of those plans that you do, kind of like a personality thing. So
Yeah, disc. Yeah, people had a lot in corporate America to figure out what their working style and listening style and people relation style and all that is. Yeah.
there you go. So the he's part of, yeah. So those are his programs, and he does a lot of sports teams.
Okay.
And I say that because unless you have a good, well, you don't have to have a good indicator of who you are, because there's tons of people doing jobs that have horrible characters. So you don't necessarily have to know who you are, right? You could just be a mess and still good at producing whatever results. But I think I don't know what it is, because you're right. We are in the Instagram world. We are in a, but I think there is a stream of us who is trying to get to the directness of the result, because there are so many voices now, like you said, of people selling you stuff, but there is no credibility attached to it. And the voices are everywhere, at least on our phones. Um, so I guess I'm saying all that to say is, please do a space again, even if it's just for me, or we talk about on the podcast, because I think once you don't have that, and you see all this fluff, I think people start to appreciate the real result of it, because there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of fluff.
I mean,
And
that's what people are interested in. Like the reason why the fluff exists is because people are interested in that. People are interested in coming together in these little entrepreneurial circles or coaching circle, whatever the new fandango, whatever is, and you get to hear what other people doing and what I'm doing, and we all put on a show about all the things and whatever and all, and like that's like the thing, and like and everybody who's teaching, like who's trying to teach you a process that's out there, for the most part, they've just figured out a way to commoditize what they do to create a lot of revenue stream. Like that's the general thing. And if you ask them for their success stories, they don't really have any. Like they're not gonna point you to people who have quadrupled their net worth, who, and it's not a multi-level marketing scheme, who have
yeah, that multi-level that keeps formulating in different ways. Yeah.
yeah, I coach you, you get two more coaches, like the whole, I'm like, y'all are crazy. This is ridiculous. So yeah, so I mean there's a lot of fluff, and a lot of people, like we said earlier, that just don't have the receipts, but people like that is what it's just like why McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and all of them exist. People like eating crap. Therefore, and I mean, they made it tasty. Don't get me wrong, it's tasty crap. But people like it. If they did not like it, they would not eat it. And thus either McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Burger King and everybody would change their model, or they would go out of business.
That's true. That's true. That's true. We get addicted to, maybe that's what that is, an extension of, we get addicted to the convenience, right? We get addicted to the satiation.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I could see that. And it's good for the group.
Yeah, it's good for, I mean, you got people going on like entrepreneurial trips to, like entrepreneurial coaching trips to Tulum. I'm like, so you're gonna spend $4,000 to go with 10 people to Tulum, and you trying to launch a business?
Wow. Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
That's what you want. You want to be on a yacht, looking cute with all the little girls, and y'all was told to dress in the same color, so y'all take a picture on the yacht. This person will put on their Instagram. That's what you want to do. You don't really want to start. You don't really want to start a business. Because if you want to start a business, that $4,000 is somewhere very special it could go, and it is not to the Instagram influencer who claims that they can help you launch the things you need to launch.
See, I think that's not common knowledge today. I think that's not common knowledge.
Common sense.
Not today. I'm telling you, not. And I say that because with the rise of AI, right? With the rise of AI and how I can literally be sitting here talking to you, and someone can script this and make my mouth move the way they need it to move. That I'm now speaking Mandarin and I'm talking about like
It's true. It's
you
true.
don't even know what to believe. And I guess I'm specifically talking about, right, those who are millennials or those who are Gen Zs, where social media is reality for them, like friends or likes or friends.
Yeah.
It still astonishes me, but um their reality is much, much different than
Yeah.
how we.
I'm still of the mindset there are certain principles. So let me tell you, um if you have there are people who just don't have business acumen, right? Like
Okay.
they're just not business minded. And that's fine because people who run businesses need people to work in the business. Like we can't all own a business. If you don't have no workers, you can't do nothing. So it's fine that you don't have any business acumen. Um, but if if your brain cells tell you that I'm trying to start a business and therefore I'm going to buy a plane ticket, get the room, pay the package for the coach that's supposed to be there, spend $5,000 all to get to this trip, and I'm trying to start a business, like the number one rule of business is to have as little outlay of money as possible and turn the biggest profit that you can. And you haven't even started the business and you have an outlay of cash. So, and there are less expensive ways to get whatever you're looking for from that trip, that person who's claimed whatever that you were like all enamored with and you decided to go on the trip. Like there are other avenues to get the information that you think you're going to get there. Plenty of other avenues that cost a lot less money. So
I'm gonna take this and put this on TikTok or something because I'm telling you, there's some fantasies that are being there are some fantasies being sold, usually in the way of a course, right? Usually in the way of a course, usually in the way of a mentorship, a tell-all book about it, just 1 hour and we'll solve your life's issues, right? Um, but yeah, maybe it's not a trip. It's usually a trip saying that we're gonna outline the whole thing for you, right? Where you spend this and you'll never be out of you'll hit $1 million in a year, Um, you're like,
not really how that
yeah.
works. And anybody who has wealth will tell you that's not how that works. Like any legit person who has wealth, who built it through things that you can touch, like tangible things that you can touch. So not like come take this e-learning course and sign up, and then I'm gonna send you all these emails and hopefully it's clickbait and you click on it and you pay me more money kind of thing. But like people who invested in business, bought businesses, started a business of like the people in real estate, like all of those things, right? Like um they will tell you that there's not an overnight success to like it's fascinating. Like I think it's interesting. Like I read the headlines of like different like business magazines and stuff like that. And they'll be like, this 32-year-old only works 2 hours a day and makes 30,000 in passive income. Read her story. I'm like, first of all, she paid y'all to place the story. Let's be clear. So that's not like you just found her on the street and had her write an article because you thought she was so great, or you thought he was so great. Like, that's paid promotional advertising articles that people are paying for, because business journals and magazines like, Business Inside and all those other things have learned that they can now also sell articles to, in their magazine to people, their digital magazine to people who want to pay to have placement in the, so yeah, I mean, like that is not it.
Not it. Oh, that's another book. Not it.
Not
it.
not in 3 months and 6 months and all that other stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people. Warren Buffett is certainly making gajillions of dollars and he ain't got to work no more. He is fine. He sleep and he do just fine all by his lonesome with every breath he takes. But you have to get there. Like, everybody will tell you, like, even people who started in real estate, they're like, I had to buy one house and then I flipped that house and I invested that money back into the next house and I was able to buy two houses, and then I learned about this loan program, so I got that, and it's the grant and whatever and all the things, and then now I have 22 houses that are like, so like there's a building process, and it's usually not in 3 months. That's not usually how it happens.
Well said. Well said, and totally contrary to our Insta culture, right? Our Instagram, our Insta culture.
That's a t-shirt, Insta culture right there. That's merch.
Insta culture.
Insta.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what all of that represents, I think, right?
Exactly.
The glamour.
That's exactly what it represents. Because just like natural hair, and how it's clearly it's healthier for you not to have extra chemicals and all that. I don't think anybody will argue with that, but it's a lot more work to do. Same thing with being an entrepreneur. People be like, I can't wait to be an entrepreneur. I'm waking up at 10 a.m. and I'm there. I'm gonna go with it. Okay, you do that, and you do that for forever, because that's not how it works.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Work. It's a lot of work, and you still are not devoid of people who annoy you and clients that get on your ever loving last nerve.
So you can't escape humanity. Humanity is going to be all around.
Yeah, humanity will be all around you. And Kim, when she was here last in Houston, oh yeah, you were at the yoga, the bowls, the same.
Yes.
That she came and did, and she told, so Kim, the center of spirituality, in my opinion, she gave her testimony. It was like she was ready to like walk away from it all, because remember, I don't know if you remember her telling her testimony, and she was like, and she was just run down and people were draining her, and it was a nightmare. And again, you can't escape it. You cannot escape it. If you are interacting with other humans, it presents its fair share of challenges.
It's just, yeah. I guess you just end up being all the things. You're doing all the jobs until you can outsource the jobs, but then you have to manage the outsourcing of the jobs.
The outsourcing of the jobs.
So, yeah,
it's a thing. So yeah,
that is a thing.
if you I'll make this commitment. If you determine that there are 10 people who want to seriously understand how to launch a business, run a business, grow a business, all of that, then I will set up another short session for them to learn the things.
I got my homework. Already got one person, so okay.
9 more to go. 9 more to go.
I got 9 more to go. Yes. I think this is
Yeah, and they cannot come because I remember somebody came to me. You didn't send them my way, but somebody came to me and they were like, "I want to start a business." I was like, "Okay, great. Well, what are you thinking about?" They're like, "I don't know. I just know I should run a business." I was like, "Well, if you do not get out of here."
So they have to at least know, right? Know and preferably have started somewhat, right? Have self initiative in an area, right?
Need to know what start like just that I want to run a business and I should run a business is not enough to connect with me. It might be enough for you to connect with the people going to Tulum, but it's not enough to connect with me.
Well, I don't know. Maybe okay. So maybe okay. We'll talk offline. But I'm like, maybe I should be asking people 5 Natalie questions is a requirement. Like if they can't answer these 5, or if the answers are less than this, then no.
I mean, you gotta know what you want. Like, what I can't give you the business idea. I mean, I've given enough business. I gave people a book. Somebody write the book called Yes Leaders. It's your fault. That's the book for you right there. Yeah, I mean, I can't give you the business. There's so many out there that you could possibly do. Some that require very little startup costs, and others that require a whole lot of startup costs.
Yeah.
I is to avoid an outlay of cash, so we tend to avoid the ones that cost a lot to start up. We try to stick to minimally, but to each his own. There are ways to start or companies that require a bit more cash up front.
That's true.
And
That's
can you
true.
please know about the business? I think I said this on one of the podcasts before. I was like, look, people, I really want to own a juicing company because I love juice. Like, well, I love smoothies, and I would really like to own a smoothie company, and it would be really cute. I got the whole inside figured out in my head, and we could do coffee, and then we got books and games. It's gonna be great. But I don't know anything about creating smoothies. Like I don't know what blend from the blender that needs, because every time I go and they had a blender, I'm like, I got a Vitamix. My Vitamix don't do it. Don't do that.
I don't even, I don't know what they got.
What kind of Vitamix did I buy from Costco? Just kidding, Costco. I love you. Um, what? So I don't know anything about how to store fruits and vegetables so people don't die when I try to make them a smoothie. Nothing about the blenders required. I don't know anything about any of that. Nor do I want to learn it. Therefore, I'm in this lifetime going to or franchise
It
a
does sound fun, but when you said how to store it so that people don't die, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of responsibility.
responsibility. And you got to keep the place clean. I'm like, then that mean you got to hire people to come and be janitorial service. You got to make sure they're actually cleaning what they say they're gonna clean. You think that like some kid just did a science project where she went to and got ice from 10 different fast food places, and the amount of bacteria that was in the ice was more than what was in your toilet water. Compared the bacteria levels to that of toilet water.
Okay,
So
I'm done. I'm done.
now, granted, most people ain't getting sick for so clearly they've all figured out how much nasty bacteria. Clearly, you can drink your toilet water and you'll be fine. But you got to make sure people don't get listeria and all kind of like that's too much. That's a lot on me. It's a burden I'm not ready to carry. So just make sure you also understand that because that's why restaurants be failing. People like, I know how to make chicken fried steak really good. They say my chicken fried steak is great. And then you go open a whole brick and mortar trying to create, and you don't know nothing about how a kitchen is supposed to operate in a restaurant establishment because there's a process and a way they get set up and done and how the front of that, like you need to go work in some places, figure out
A
how to
lot.
magic. Then you can go do some stuff.
That sounds like a lot.
It's a lot because
Yeah.
people at Starbucks, I'd be like, y'all really are on rotation for like taking out the trash and I've always said, like, if this consulting gig don't work, I'm going to be at like Crate and Barrel or Williams Sonoma. Like, that's my two spots.
That's just fine. I'm gonna be look, I might be the next week Trader Joe's. I really like grocery stores. I don't know what it is about them, but
Like,
I like
grocery store,
grocery stores. Hmm?
you think you would work at a grocery store? Because I always think, because Martin used to work at Whole Foods, and it
Do
never
you
said,
like it?
yeah, he loved it. He thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. He started in the meat department as a butcher, and then he worked his way to the front line, whatever they call the people in front. Um, and but I'm just like, it's too much happening at the grocery store, and they off from the cash register. Now you got to go work with the shrimp. I'm like, I can't do that.
I do. I did. I used to work at Randall's, and I really, really enjoyed it, but I did not like. Um, it was kind of like a Walmart situation, right? Your breaks, you have to you have to balance that till apparently. People get mad at you.
They do. That is true. That's very true. That's very true. Yes. Yes, they do. Well, Whole Foods was really good. I can say now this was before Bezos, because Bezos then came and Martin's not there anymore, but Bezos came and flipped the script. But Whole Foods was fantastic from like a benefits perspective prior
Wow.
to ownership of Bezos. I mean, like, um, health insurance was like pennies, absolute
Wow.
pennies.
And they used to get paid as much as teachers. I remember that. I was like, I
Yeah,
ain't gonna work that.
yeah. I mean, like people, entry level people were getting paid like $17 an hour to start. You had a 401k plan, you had PTO and vacation, you had like holidays that you could take off. Like, they had like a full benefit package.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so they were, I mean, they were really, I thought they were a great employer. Now they didn't understand how to escalate leadership, because they leaders in the actual stores were abysmal, most of them. Mainly because, they're just like, oh, you ran health and beauty really well, come be the store assistant manager. And you'd be like, see, that's not how you should be the assistant manager, but okay. So that was a challenge for them. But yeah, overall they had really good things. So, you know, know know what you want. You know what you want to do, know a bit about the business. Um,
Mhm.
because you're not going to be successful if you don't understand how the business that you want to stand up works.
That's true. We'll get the experience in the area.
That's correct. Let me not say you're not going to be successful. You're just going to have a long runway to success while you take all the lumps and bumps of learning.
Mm, that
So
makes sense. Or,
yeah.
or a stationery store. I would do a stationery store too.
Oh
Something
my
about retail. The only thing that scared
God,
me.
store. Me and Paper Source are like the best of
Oh,
friends. I love Paper Source.
I actually, this is years ago, but I applied for a job at Paper Source, and I can't remember. I think I opted to go back to school. But yes, so I was like, might be a fun part time. The only issue with retail about the hours, but I don't know. I'm older. Kids are.
That's why I like Williams Sonoma and Crate and Barrel. See, because and I like the fact that, except for in the holidays, which I actually love Williams Sonoma during the holiday time period, even though I don't celebrate the holidays, I still love the stuff that they do. I don't like stores that have a lot of inventory. So like Paper Source, as much as I love them, they store got all kind of tchotchkes all over the place. It's 29 million inventory items in that whole store. I'm like, I can't, y'all. It's too much. But like Crate and Barrel has a lot of big furniture pieces. Like, that's all the upstairs. Downstairs, they have like, I mean,
Hell,
Crate and Barrel? Yeah,
yeah.
they got furniture upstairs. that you order, obviously, because they don't keep it in stock. And then downstairs, they have some stuff that you can pull off the shelf, like small appliances, plates, glasses, that kind of stuff. Same for Williams Sonoma. They got a lot of big ticket things. Not so much furniture, but like they have a lot of
Oh,
pots and a lot of like it's, that kind of thing. And the footprint is relatively small.
okay, okay.
Lots.
I hear you. Like, no paper source. Too much stuff at paper source. Well, I love me some paper source.
Yeah, I'll be right there. Welcome to Williams Sonoma. How can I help you today? Oh my God, are you looking at the Le Creuset pots? I love them. They heat so evenly. I have two sets myself. Like that's what
It's like that's why I'm end up. This
I'm
don't work out. That's why I'm end up.
I'm telling you, if it don't work out, that's where I'm gonna be. Or when I absolutely retire, which I'm pretty sure I'm not going to ever. But if I were ever, I'm going in there and I'm gonna work. And them little ladies I went in there and bought a whole bunch of stuff for the place in Dallas, and they were like, and maybe you need one of these. Oh, and let me show you how this coffee maker works. And then if you pick this one and it has digital, I was eating up. I'm like, this is where I need to be.
It's not.
Like if and when I retire, that's what I'm gonna be. Or if this consulting thing, which is a little late for the consulting thing not to work out, but if for some reason it didn't work out,
I've been doing this for a million years now. Look at
million years. It has been a million years and it's already worked. So it can't really reverse itself now. So I guess
a career. Like you have a career. You don't have a side hustle. You have a career,
that's true. That's true.
right? It's like a career, not a side hustle.
That is
Yeah,
true. That is true.
yeah.
So
We're trying to turn side hustles into mainstream businesses. That's what most of us are trying to do,
true.
right?
That is very true. Yes. And it can be done. And that's what we want to happen for everyone.
Well, I know you have your meeting soon. Um, and I'm like, how am I going to stay awake from him? We both have to get some late night. We
Yeah.
have early morning meeting, yeah.
Early morning meetings. Thanks to having a team spread out across the entire globe with people in APAC, which is Asia Pacific, and people in EMEA. That means I get to meet late at night with people on certain days, early in the morning with people on certain days at like 5 and 6, and at 10 and 11 o'clock at night, and all the things. It's interesting. It's fun.
Right. It's like you have children then. You
I'm
get
gonna tell you, man. I said it to one
all
of
the
my team members. I said to one of my team members today because I had a call with them at 6 a.m. to my two team members, and I was just like, I didn't sleep well last night. So first of all, I'm struggling to find my words. So y'all forgive me if it take me a little while longer to articulate the things that I need to talk about today. I was like, but I don't know how parents do it because when y'all have toddlers and babies, there is no sleep, and I don't know how and put words together the next day.
we're delirious. That's what's happening. That's probably why the state of the world is so jacked up, is
Y'all
because half of us are
job
completely delirious.
at hiding delirium.
We are we are delirious because I don't think I slept for the first 10 years. Like I just last summer, everybody was sleeping through the night, the whole night, all night.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Delirious.
How y'all do? There are clearly people who are, maybe when you become a parent, something changes in your hormonal whateverness that fuels your brain and all the things. Because I remember my mom too, and I don't remember my mom sleeping, quite honestly, at all. Like she would be up at night grading papers from her students at Prairie View, and then she would be up with me, and then she'd go to work at like 7 or 8, and then she would I'm just like, I don't even understand what is happening. When are we sleeping? Because I'm sleeping. As a kid, you were
As a kid, we were sleeping, but as adults, I'm like, I hope this don't catch up to me, but well, it has cut up to me. Let me stop lying because that's where high blood pressure comes from, lack of sleep and all this other stuff and
yeah.
things we do to our bodies. But we live and we learn. But yes, there is a cost. There is a cost. We're just not so healthy and not sleeping.
That is true. There is a cost, and And now, they're tying Alzheimer's to lack of sleep because of the proteins that are supposed to clear out in your brain.
What?
It only happens during REM cycle of sleep. And if, they're saying that like it basically builds up like plaque in your brain when you don't get the right amount of REM to clear it out, to flush it out, because it only flushes out during REM. And they're saying there's a correlation there with Alzheimer's. And when I read that, I was like, let me figure out how to get my whole sleep life together, because what we can't do. Yeah.
Okay, I could see that. I could see that because that whole thing, and I thought it was just parenting, but that whole thing when you forget your kids' names, I'm like, you know your name.
Like you, number two, come here.
I mean, yeah, the forgetful, like, oh man, I'm forgetting stuff that I don't need to be forgetting, but
I know. Well, I went and had my cognitive abilities baselined about 2 years ago, because I was on a call, and there was a
my
word
computer.
there was a word that I was trying to think of in the middle of a sentence, and I couldn't think of the word, which is fine. Sometimes words escape you. But then I also couldn't think of any words to describe the word that I was looking for. And I was terrified. I was like, I like a deer in headlights. I didn't know what to do with myself. Immediately when I hung up that call, I called a neurologist and I was like, hey, look, I'm concerned about memory issues. I'm gonna need all the scans, all the tests, all the blood work, all the whatever. Let's get it done, because if something's happening, we need to fix it now.
What So, I mean, that's kind of amazing. That's the first of all, you got a good brain. It's the first time that happened. Um, I think the rest of us should be concerned about ourselves. I'm like,
No, no,
but I can't.
no, but like I couldn't even think of, it's not like, again, people forget words all the time, but you often can find a synonym for the word that you were attempting to use that you can't think of. Or you can
Right.
describe the word. Like I may forget the word chair. You're like, the thing you sit in when you're at the table. And then people come like, oh, chair. And you're like, yeah, chair. I was blank. It was like just blackness. It was just blackness in my brain. Like I couldn't see. I was like, hell no. What we doing? What we gotta do? Tell me what we gotta do. We gotta fix it. So
But
yeah.
you're aware enough to even. That's interesting because you're aware enough to know that shouldn't be the thing that's happened.
Yeah, no, I was terrified. Like Martin thought I had lost my mind while I was running around the house trying to find information about whatever I needed to find that they had asked me for that I needed to provide. I forgot. So they asked me to bring some stuff and things like that. And he was like, "Are you?" I was like, "Look, what's not gonna happen is brain loss. There are lots of other things that can be lost. Brain loss is not one of them. We are not participating in that. So we need cognition. So yeah, so I went. They did tests. They were like, "You're fine. You have evidence of migraines," which I was like, "Yes, I do have migraines." And then I went off and did my little 5-hour test at the neuropsychology whatever place that baseline you for cognition, and they were like, "You're great. You test above average in most areas, except for the one that I knew I failed." And the woman was so hilarious because I was like, when we were reading over my results, and she was like, "Yeah, you tested." There were 2 areas where I tested like normal based on like my demographic and age group and all that, and all the other places I tested either above normal or exceeds whatever. And I was like, "Dang it! I knew I failed that part." And she was like, "I would phrase it as failure." I was like, "It's a normal, right?" She was like, "Yes." I was like, "That's failure."
Oh my gosh! Now I want to take that test. Now I want to take that. Look, I don't want
It
to
was
disappoint
the
myself. Let me
weird,
stop.
it was the weirdest test ever. Like the two that I failed, one of them was like, it was like a half clock, but it had all 12 like arms of the clock. And you had
Okay.
to look at other lines, similar ones, but you had to try to match where the clock is that you're looking at with the different clocks that were popping up. So like a clock
Okay.
pop up and it might have an arm at 30 degree and one at like 180 degree. And so then you had to like move your thing to match that. And it would say
Okay.
like you had to draw whatever it was. And I was like, I can't tell. I don't do well with spatial things.
Oh, I know. Oh, you know what?
So if you
Oh, that's one of the
like
conversations.
how tall is the guy
Spatial.
who robbed the store? I'm like, I'm 5'2", dude, be 7'4". I'm off. I
Oh,
can't tell.
spatial. No, I am very, I have a cognitive deficit in that area. Spatial, no. That's why I can't do engineering. Like your
Yeah,
bridge is gonna be
that's your no structure gonna be just. I'll be like, well, all right, okay.
like I could barely do the font. You show me the font. I'm like, that's spatial. Puzzles, hate them. Don't understand them. Don't know why people do them.
That's
You
true.
know,
Yeah.
same thing. Like, why are we doing this? We know the picture from the beginning. Just, I'm not a puzzle person.
That's what I feel like. So yeah, so I didn't do well with the two spatial tests. And I didn't even know it was spatial until they said it. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know spatial. I can't tell you that looking at the wall, that's a 4 foot wide wall. There's lots of people who can. People can, like Martin and I have fights all the time about what can and cannot fit through a door. Like when we were bringing furniture for Dallas, I was like, I that's gonna fit. Mom was like, babe, that's not gonna fit. I'm like, yes, it's fine. Fit through the door. And then no, it didn't fit through the door. And then we had to figure out other things.
Mm-mm. No, didn't take that wood shop, whatever that was that teaches you what that's geometry. I was not, yeah, all that stuff.
But you can take the test. It's right up the street too, right up the street in Houston from where we're at.
I need to take that to see how viable I am and what I need to work on.
Because then at least
Well,
baseline. You have a baseline, and then in 5 years or 10 years, you can go back and you can see if you declined or if you stayed the same or whatever.
so at least gives you a baseline of where you are. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that won't be so scary. Make me like,
Offended. I
that'll
just
be interesting.
what are these normal things over here? Yeah, so
What's the norm? But that would help explain some things, especially if I was struggling in certain areas. Okay. Um, well, I'm looking forward to us wrapping this up because I think you have excellent information. I have some homework. I'm gonna find some peeps.
find them, find
I'm gonna start a business.
here for it.
Yes, beyond the fluff. Yes, I am, and I'm looking forward to this. What is it called? The merch is in my brain. If what did you say, your grandpa? If was a fifth.
You said, oh, if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. And then we also have Instaculture. I like Instaculture.
It's the culture. Yes. So we have two merch things to do. So I want to wrap up about some stuff offline, but I just want to say thank you again and let's keep pushing this conversation and culture forward. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Bye, everyone.